Okay, I will call to order the Rolesville Board of Commissioners work session. This is February 17th, 2026. I just want to thank everybody in attendance. Looks like we got good attendance tonight. Appreciate everybody turning out. The weather's a little bit better today, so maybe that got you out of the house a little bit, and appreciate everybody coming out. We do have 5 items, I think, on the work session tonight to discuss. This is not a night that we do a call to public, that we do that one time a month, first of the month, so that'll be a couple weeks from now. So there is no public speaking tonight, but thanks everybody for coming out, participate. First item we got is downtown overlay district proposal. So we got Sheila Sutton, president of Rolesville Downtown Development Association here, RDDA. Michael, you want to do any setup, or you want Sheila come on up?
Go on up.
Okay, come on up, Sheila.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mayor and Town Board. Good to see everybody tonight.
Good to see you.
They say that when you're doing a presentation, if you're nervous, you're supposed to say, I'm nervous, and it's supposed to dissipate. Let's see if that works.
Be nervous.
Y'all are family. We're going to say that. So hello to the mayor, the board, commissioners, the staff, town attorney, community. Thank you all so much for being here tonight, and I thank you for this opportunity to share with you. I am not trying to be before you long, so watch the time for me, Michael. There we go. So I want to talk to you all tonight. We've talked about this. I think it's come up a couple of times about having a downtown overlay. And I just want to spend some time tonight talking about the why we want to have this. And it really is about protecting the vision and guiding growth as you all work every day. And even before I start, I just want to say thank you all so much for your service to this town. I've sat up there, so I know that it is service, and sometimes it's thankless. So thank you all for what you give to this town and this community. We appreciate you. I'm going to talk about what a downtown overlay is, why we need one, why we're talking about this, and what happens if we don't create it. And obviously, I'm going to ask for some action from you all, and then we'll do a quick Q&A. So what is a downtown overlay? And I'm going to start by saying Sheila is not an engineer, nor am I in planning. So this is coming from downtown development, kind of the things that we have seen and things that we've seen in your plans. So we would just want to share these. It's a zoning tool layered over your zoning. It ensures that development aligns with your comprehensive plan, and it focuses on these areas: architectural design standards, building placement, street activation. I'm sure businesses want that downtown. Density, walkability, we've talked about that a lot. And obviously commercial frontage is very important to an overlay. So I want to keep focusing on this word intentional, because to me, that's what plans are all about. It's about being intentional and getting what you want. So why do we need a downtown overlay? Simply, it protects our downtown land, which is very limited, as you all know. It also creates consistency for developers. It also helps marry the plans that you have into reality, taking the policies that you create and turning them into action. Once developed incorrectly, as we all know, it's very, very hard to back that up and retrofit it. I think about when I built my house, when the builder built my house and you walked in there and stuff was done, when you go, wait, I don't want that like that. And they look at you like, what kind of money you got? So just realistically, it saves you on cost and everything when you have a plan going forward. So with an overlay, again, protecting our downtown land, which is very scarce. We reinforce the Main Street identity, and I'll talk more about that a little later. We build upon the vision that we've laid out, and we work proactively to guide growth. That doesn't mean we won't have growth, but we guide it. And this, I just want to show you all briefly. The map's a little distorted, I apologize, but this is the area map that we use for Rolesville downtown development when we're awarding facade improvement grants. These are some of the streets that we cover, obviously the streets that are on Main Street and off of Main Street, and those streets that are off of Main Street. So that's what we use, and this could be a guide for starting an overlay process for the town. I want to point out just a couple of examples of towns that have been intentional in our local area. Wake Forest, I think, is a really good example. They're downtown, White Street. Everyone's probably familiar with that. But this effort for them started a long time ago, even prior to 1985. But specifically in 1985, they formed what's called the Wake Forest Downtown Revitalization Corporation. And they started and created in 2004 this Renaissance plan for the heart of Wake Forest. And I just want to emphasize this part that's highlighted. It's heavily invested in streetscapes, walkability, mixed use development to transform it into a modern, pedestrian-friendly, and bustling center. If I took out the names of Wake Forest, that sounds very similar to what Rolesville wants to create. So that's one example of a town that's local, very close to us. And another one, how many of you are familiar with Knightdale Station? I didn't know this. I learned this literally today. Not about Knightdale Station, but the little point I'm gonna make at the end. This area features over 600 single-family homes. I didn't know that number. Townhomes, including the cottages and the lofts, a YMCA, Daly's Academy, and walking trails, a dog park, a playground. It also has a Veterans Memorial out there. But this is the part I didn't know. Future development, the area is expanding with the nearby Downtown North project, which will bring 90 acres of additional shopping, dining, and housing, and the collection at Knightdale Station, but a Downtown North station. So to me, these examples show that these towns have been intentional about their downtown and about their areas that they want to activate. The vision for downtown Rolesville, the Main Street Vision Plan, circa 2018, 8 years ago. At least that's what it said online when I looked. So we want to create with that. We say we want a walkable Main Street, mixed-use development, activated street frontage, density that supports our businesses. A destination is what we want, not just a pass-through. The overlay district would ensure we carry out this particular vision. That's a repeat. We're going to ignore that. So let's talk about a bustling downtown. What does that mean? Businesses want traffic and consistent activity. More customers mean more sales and a more successful business in Rolesville. And ultimately, it means a larger tax base for us. We know that a lot of our tax base is residential still, and so we want more businesses to create more business tax. Peace and quiet is really designated for your suburban and rural areas away from town. Downtowns are meant to be lively and dense. Internal, now this is where we get into Sheila is not a traffic engineer, but I am going to allude to this, and I got Matt Peach over here, he's got my back. Internal trip versus external trip. Instead of having folks drive through traffic, this will help it drive more pedestrian traffic. So you don't want people just driving through your downtown. You'd like people to park and walk, or just walk. I can walk from my house. I think I'm a mile from, maybe 2 miles from Main and Young. Without such, the result can be mainly evening and weekend business. And you think about our businesses. This kind of happened in downtown Raleigh. I worked in downtown Raleigh for about 10 years. And towards the end of my tenure downtown, a lot of businesses were closed, and Chick-fil-A was really big down there when I worked down there. I used to have breakfast and lunch and sometimes dinner, Chick-fil-A. But anyway, but as people started to work from home, right, it becomes kind of a ghost town. So a lot of businesses are dealing with that happening in their communities. So you want your areas downtown to be lively all day, 9 to 5 and after 5 o'clock. Okay, Matt, help me out. Traffic engineers use a metric called the internal trip capture. It refers to a portion of trips that start and end with the same development, like a resident walking to the downstairs coffee shop without ever touching a public road. So when we think about traffic, we think, oh, if we build, we're going to have all this traffic. But if I live right there, I can walk out my door and go to the store, go to the restaurant, go to the shop. So it's a trip reduction. So it's a counterintuitive truth. So when you put people downtown, you aren't adding new traffic to the world. You are taking people who would have driven through your town from surrounding neighborhoods and turning them into pedestrians who stay within your downtown. These slides will be available so you guys can digest them further, so you don't have to read or take notes. I meant to say that earlier. So higher density is what we're talking about. When properly designed, we're not talking about a hodgepodge. I'm all about intentionality. Into your existing community acts as a significant asset for migrating internal traffic issues. Because I know traffic's a hot button. And I just want to reference in regards to traffic and parking in downtown, something else I learned is a lot of urban areas, a lot of cities are getting rid of parking minimums. That's all I'm gonna say about that and pique your interest so you can reference these articles and think about this as you think about designing this overlay. So what happens if we do nothing? Let it just happen. What's the risk of not being intentional? A lot of times we see that there's unintended consequences that happen. So what does happen is it allows residential to dominate your key frontage, losing those commercial opportunities that we say we want. Suburban standards will creep into our downtown. It reduces activation and engagement. I talked about that 9 to 5. We want people to be activated 9 to 5, not just after 5 and on the weekends. It underutilizes prime land real estate, and you can never get that back. Or I should say it's very difficult to get that back. And long-term, it weakens your downtown. It hinders expansion of that commercial tax base that I know all of you want. All of us want as a community, because I could ask anybody in this audience right now who lives in Rolesville, how many want your taxes to go up on your home? I, for one, would not be one of those, right? So in developing an overlay, action is needed, folks. To protect the long-term vision for downtown Rolesville, we must create a downtown Rolesville overlay district with the text amendment to the LDO, Land Development Ordinance, for those that may not know, sorry. So one idea that your new planning director told us about was a tiered approach. So I put this picture up here to just think about maybe it's a tiered approach that we do for development downtown. Bottom line is we have to take action today by directing staff to devise a text amendment to create a downtown overlay. I realize that we already have a town center district and that would work in coordination with this, but I'm asking you all to take action and protect our future. I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to say a couple of sentences from it. Establishing an overlay for downtown Rolesville is a proactive way the town's plans, which are the comp plan, LDO, and the Main Street vision, work together to create an inviting, lively, and walkable downtown. This creates your Rolesville City Center, a place where people want to live, work, and play. And I would say visit. I think about, is it Franklinton? I keep hearing about Franklinton. I haven't been, but I hear a lot about Franklinton. Why am I hearing about Franklinton? Because people are talking about it, right? Why do we hear about Friday Night on White, or what is it called now? Night on White. Everyone knows what that is because people are talking about it. So I want to leave you with this quote from Abraham Lincoln: the best way to predict your future is to create it. So just asking you all to really consider this. I know it's going to take some time and some work, but not only as Rolesville Downtown Development, but as a citizen of this town, a resident of this town since 2004. I watched it grow. When I moved here, it was 900 people. And now I'm sure it's budding to 14,000, and it's going to continue to grow. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law just moved, not to Rolesville, they went to Youngsville from New York, and they love it. And I guarantee you there's more to come, more to come. So with that, I'll stop because I could go on and on. I'm sure you all have heard the thoughts that we have from downtown development's perspective. So I'm just going to pause and see what questions you all have for me.
Thank you, Sheila, your presentation. Appreciate you sharing that. Anybody got any questions for this?
Mr. Mayor, I certainly do. Sheila, thank you so much for presenting. So great presentation. I just have some clarity questions. First one, specifically, I love the statement around proactively working to guard growth. Could you give me a little bit more detail about what you mean by that specifically for the people?
Does it say guide? I think it's guide. I can go back.
Guide, guard,
Guide.
the G word.
Really?
Growth is
It's
the word.
about intentionality. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. It's guiding growth. Thank you, Commissioner Long, for that question. It's really about protecting it and really having an intentional plan instead of things just being more happenstance. I went to I think it was Virginia Beach. Don't hold me on that. But I was in this place and I was looking around the shopping center and I was like, why are these businesses mixed? Like, what's going on? And I just feel like it was kind of a hodgepodge of everything. And it's kind of like when you don't have a plan, you don't have a map, you don't know where you're going. So if you have a plan and you have a map, I really think when you tell people what you want, you tend to get it versus not telling people what you want. My husband always says, tell me what you want, and I'll get it for you. I'm like, I want you to just know. And that doesn't always work out well. So that's what I mean by guide, is to be intentional.
And so my follow-up question is, which I actually wrote down, intentional. I'm assuming you're referring to the different types of businesses?
Both businesses as well as living
Okay, thank you.
living areas. Thank you.
And my question for you, ma'am, is if the board were to move forward with this proposal, what would the anticipated timeline look like? And what opportunities could exist for our public input and review?
Timing is really going to depend on you all and staff. I don't have a magic wand to say it could be done in this amount of time because I know it's going to take some research and some investment in time. But I definitely, I'm a huge proponent of public input. So I definitely think the public needs to have input. But I hope it's something we can enact this year in 2026. But definitely the public needs to be involved and be able to weigh in.
Appreciate that.
Great question.
Thank you.
Great question.
I like how you talk about the walkability, because I've had several people that live over by Publix tell me that they're so happy that they can send their children to the grocery store for them, so they don't have to go. And it's within walking distance.
Yeah.
Some are like, I can see it right from my house. So I'm trusting, and it's a good thing. So I'm excited about that. So with the overlay district, so talk to us a little bit about that process. So from here, what would happen?
So I'm hoping that you all will say it makes sense, and we want staff to start researching this. And obviously that's going to take some research with other towns and what needs to take place, setting it up, and bring back to you all some different ideas on how to put this into motion. Our thought was not to come and develop the text amendment. It was really to say the need for it is here. So really it would be tasking staff, Eric and his lovely team, and our town attorney to do those things.
So if a vote was taken and passed, that's just basically giving the staff the authority to go ahead and look into next steps.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
I appreciate what you said about Publix. I remember years ago with Food Lion, it was supposed to be that same kind of setup, but we never had any development there. And now that we're getting development there, I think it's going to be that same concept of people walking. And I, a lot of times, walk to Food Lion and Publix from my house. So,
I do have one more question, Sheila. Being in this town, I mean, I think you said you came in 2004. I was here in 2002 and 2003, right?
Okay.
And I remember just the Hardys and the looks that we have now, aesthetics. I'm seeing and I'm hearing, you mentioned as part of the overlay, there's going to be some architecture designs. When it comes to small businesses, are we looking at the economic impact of the design that we're looking at? Is that some of the things that you're going to be vetting out, in other words? What that design will look like, how you're going to present it to us? Are those some of the things that the RDDA will be doing and bringing back to us?
That's some things that the RDDA would like to have input on.
Okay.
Not that we could necessarily design it all, because obviously it has to make sense and it has to be something that's actually doable. But we would love to be a part of committee, whatever, to give some feedback, steering committee on those architectural design standards, definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Sheila.
Hey, how
How
are
are
you,
you?
Commissioner
Good.
Paul?
So a couple comments. One, yes, you and I have talked about it. Downtown overlay makes absolute sense. And the more we can have direction on it, the better off the town's going to be. Just a couple comments. Reviewing, as you probably know, on the comp plan, there's a lot of interest in additional entertainment, recreation, restaurants, retail. There's a concern about the traffic, and you and I have had those conversations. In addition, just a couple observations. Friday night on White Street, it's a bunch of businesses. There's no residential on White Street, and it thrives. I believe the same can be said of Franklinton, downtown Franklinton. Again, a very bustling commercial sector with no residential. So we just especially with the traffic, we have to be cognizant of that when we look at the design, which
Sure.
will take time and it'll be thoughtful, but just want to throw that out there.
Definitely. And I would just like to comment, I appreciate your comments on that, Commissioner Paul. And White Street doesn't have commercial at its front, but it does have, it has commercial at its front, sorry, but it has a lot of residential behind it. So the whole goal is for people to be able to walk to those commercial businesses. So I agree with you, the commercial needs to be your frontage. And then you have residential that backs up behind it or somewhere near so people can walk to it. Like I walk to my Food Line, it's 1.1 miles from my house. Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions for me?
Well, is this thing on? Now it is. Okay. So when you brought up about getting rid of parking minimums, is that because the idea is to have people living right there on Main Street that they would be walking versus, because we're already experiencing issues with parking at Cobblestone, and they're only at 50% capacity with residents. So it's still, we need parking spaces for people to come to, park once and walk around. So what is your thoughts though on how would we mitigate that for people that don't live right there within walking?
Sure. Thank you so much for that question, Commissioner. That I was referencing an article, and they were talking about how parking has kind of changed because years ago, everything was about, we got to have all this parking. And I talked about how people are working from home and doing different things. And then it becomes kind of a ghost town. And so you have these parking areas that are designated that are not being used. So I was giving you all a link to those articles so that you can look at them. Because it was, yes, I'm going to send you all this whole presentation so that you can take a look. But yeah, I was like, that's interesting. So just, that was going to be food for thought for you all.
But I do agree wholeheartedly. I love the idea of having an architectural standard for up and down Main Street. Unfortunately, Rolesville lost its Main Street at the turn of the century with the fire that went through. So we don't have those big, old, beautiful buildings like they have in Wake Forest or Franklinton, like you mentioned. So I'm definitely in favor of having a unique architectural standard
Great.
for up and down Main Street there.
I love it. Agree.
Any additional questions? Thank you. Appreciate that. And I think, Eric, we have kind of talked about this before. I'm not exactly sure, Dave, do we need a vote on this as long as we direct the staff to come back to this board with a text amendment recommendation for overlay district. And I think Sheila said by the end of the year, maybe we'll be a little bit more aggressive than that, but,
I would like that.
huh?
I would like that.
Yeah. But I guess we got Eric and Stephen 1, Stephen 2 here. So, is that doable? Can we expect a text amendment before the end of the year, on maybe a recommendation for a text amendment, I guess is kind of what I'm looking for.
For clarity, you mean the calendar year or fiscal year when we say year?
Calendar, fiscal year is right.
Okay,
Right.
fiscal year is around the corner, but we can definitely, I do think that end of the calendar year is feasible for a recommendation or to bring it back before your discussion with potential text amendments. And what we'll do is we'll proactively take into account some of the things if you all have mentioned as far as design standards, downtown parking, and there'll be other factors that come into that, like stormwater regulations as well, or certain things that will be relieved. But that would also transition to us taking more ownership of certain things within the area as well. And so we can bring that back to before you all in the form of text amendments, and also the proposed overlay with things that we should be thinking about as a town if we do that, or as a byproduct, we can do that.
So does that mean like a workshop along the way, just so we can keep this moving along as quickly as possible?
Yeah, that'd be the best venue for that.
And we probably need to involve the public at least once or so maybe some type of.
Yes, we'd probably do some sort of an open house to have them come in and give comments on it. similar to how we went through the process with the comprehensive plan as well. We target communications with residents that live in the immediate area as well, to ensure that they're in the loop as well as the greater Rolesville community.
So Dave, any legal issues with this proposed overlay district?
There are plenty, and I think that's probably what the board is thinking about. And they're issues, they're not problems. So it's a text amendment, it's also a map amendment. You're amending the zoning by applying to the map, our zoning map, an overlay district, and what properties are affected makes a difference at the end of the day. So you'll be doing both, and you'll be complying with both the procedure that we have under 160D for a text amendment, as well as for a map amendment.
So it can't be a bubble like we saw in the picture. It has to, the individual lot IDs has to be identified.
It can be whatever the board wants it to be in terms of the boundary. There are pros and cons of different choices, and the planning department and the planning director will guide that discussion as to what is in and what is out. Following the exact existing lines might not make sense. So you end up with split zoning of individual lots, which creates future matters to be resolved when development comes along. A property could be partially within the overlay district and benefit or be burdened by the overlay when that project comes along. Other areas of their property may be outside the overlay district. But overlay districts are expressly authorized by statute. However, we've also have to live with the world that we now live in that prohibits any downzoning. So the effect as to a particular property when it comes forward for development cannot have the effect of reducing the uses that previously could have been made or creating nonconformities with regard to the design.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the zoning, so you kind of mentioned that ahead of it. Because we did some work identifying all the commercial, I think we did some work identifying a lot of the commercial that we can't downzone pretty much. So that would be incorporated, I would think, into this effort. Is that right?
That would be addressed in the text to make sure that we don't mistakenly create an illegal text change, correct?
Mm-hmm. So we got some, I guess, some groundwork, Sheila, and you've probably seen some of that work that we did on identifying what's already there.
Right.
And some of it is, we know it's not what's there now is going to be changed somewhere in the future, but we can't really downsize it to change it. It's really has to be what it is zoned for or upsized. So, so any issues, Eric, in making this happen, you think?
No, I will go back with the planning director and staff, and we'll gladly communicate if there are any issues. But by way of our eye contact through the room, seems like it'll be feasible for us to do that and bring those alternatives back to you.
I think from what I gathered from the board here, they want to move forward on this. And, if we can give you direction, Dave, if you think if we need to vote on it, we'll vote on it. But I think, he's got clear, correct direction on what we're asking for.
This will come forward under the statutory process, and the board will make a decision as set out by statute. So this is really just guidance for the staff to spend time bringing forward to you a proposal that would require your votes.
And there's no opposition from the board of this, right?
No, sir.
No, I think we've been talking about it for a long time.
I think we're good to go then.
Time to move forward on it.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you so
y'all for the
much.
hard work.
Oh, you're
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you all.
Thanks
Keep
a
up the
lot.
good work.
Thank you, Sheila. And then the comprehensive plan 2050, really. Stephen,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you again.
Is this your first time at the mic?
First time at the mic. Yeah, so be easy on me.
All right, we will. So what is you have for the workshop tonight?
I just have a copy of the flu map, if I understand how this thing works.
Because what we just talked about may affect what you.
Exactly. It was a
mind.
good primer kickoff for this discussion. How does this thing work? It's not,
Is this beginner?
I pushed it. Okay, great. I probably pushed it twice. Yeah, so this is our existing blue map, and if there's areas we're interested in, I can zoom in and we can have a discussion. Obviously, downtown is part of it.
That'd be great.
So it's really kind of an open discussion. if I
Yes, an open
understand.
discussion for the benefit of any of the residents that may be watching. Our Rolesville 2050 is our Town of Rolesville Comprehensive Plan. We had to kick off last year. Well, it's probably the year before last, honestly, here in a work session. And the journey of that went through background and research and analysis. We had a public engagement process that consisted of a survey to the community, focus group interviews, workshop sessions with the board and also the community at large. And then the consultant that supported us with this also set up at 4th of July and Fall Fun Fest and set up a booth to engage the community as well. So by partnering with the consultant, we took input from the community, brought it back to a steering committee in which we did some visioning and some goal setting. And then ultimately we developed a plan of recommendations and also this future land use map that's presented for you by our planning director. And late last year in November, we planned both finalized and adopted it. And I just give that as a caveat that us coming back to you all, this is a natural part of the process in which we adopt a plan and then we come back with an amendment of some sort to help tweak certain aspects of it as they give us this meat and bones, so to speak. And then you all being the representing the voice of the residents and things that you see through development can offer up those recommendations, and we continue to tailor it over the years. And so even though it is a Rolesville 2050 plan, it's one of those things that will continue to evolve and will tweak over the years to more closely align and tailor the vision to some of the experiences we're trying to cultivate in downtown, which is similar to the conversation and presentation from the RDDA a few moments ago. So I wanted to give a little bit of background on that for those who this might be the first time they hear about it. We know we have people moving here every day, every week. And so we can chat through it. We know that there were a few concerns that were highlighted. Stephen mentioned the first, which is the use of the properties on the down Main Street. One of the original promptings was from the Scarborough property, and that's the original conversation around that and wanting us to look at that. And so we're open to hearing any concerns and questions that you all have. The goal is to kind of have the discussion with you all, and then by way of us facilitating, get some agreement on it, and we can come back with recommendations as well as the things you would like to see tweaked or changed within the plan.
Okay. So I think how many properties is identified that has been discussed? Is it, and I guess before we get too deep in it, Dave, does downsizing, does a comp plan requirements? No, we can change the comp plan.
No, the comp plan is not a regulatory document. It's a guiding document that announces to the world the intent and the vision of the board. It guides the staff as well, but it's not a regulatory document, and no one is denied a use on the basis of what might appear in the comp plan itself or on the future land use map.
So if the board wants to make some tweaks to the comp plan, it's no big, it's no regulatory.
Well, you still need to go through the public hearing process and all those sort of things, but there's no prohibition upon adopting that vision.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not always up to speed on all the development names, but was it Scarborough Village downtown? That area was of some concern. I'm not sure of the others actually, so it's kind of an open forum, and I can.
And that's the only one we received from you all, like feedback wise, was that we knew that there was residential, and some of you had thoughts on promote more commercial in that area and others throughout the corridor. And so we wanted to see if anything stood out as to a specific area you wanted us to look at from a staff perspective, or is it something you want us to generally look at? But we just didn't want to not come before you and have an open discussion and see what your thoughts are on that.
When you say look at, just for my clarity, you're referring to specific properties or locations within this Main Street corridor that you want us to signify where we would like to see potential commercial and/or residential is what I'm just making sure I understand correctly.
Well, I think the issue is there's been some rezonings as of late that are essentially in compliance with the plan, but there seems to be some pushback about whether or not the council wants that land use in that particular property or that area, because you change that one, what does it mean for the next one? So what is the vision? How do we get there? Because, you know, this vision will impact the rezoning. It'll impact what developers bring forward. And you really want the developers to come forward and be successful and bring you the vision that you want. And this is the document that brings that.
I think I'm gonna be blunt here. If y'all allow me for a minute, just to get to the crutch of it. I think what I'm hearing from some people is really two things: is apartments and townhomes, the multifamily stuff. And right, I mean that's the thing I hear when it comes to comprehensive plan. You know, is the townhomes and the apartments, and so let's just get it out. If that's the deal, then let's talk about it and let's get it out. So, and that's probably what you have issues with when we, you know, bring up townhomes and apartments. So, right now, apartments can go anywhere as long as they meet the density, right? Is that right?
They can go in the specific zoning districts that allow those uses. And I can't say I'm up to speed on which ones, but I think it's high density residential, and there's a medium density residential category. And the land use guidance kind of identifies which zoning districts match the land use guidance. So that's the connection. So if you want to achieve a mixed use with commercial and residential, there's a category of land use on the map here that identifies that mix. If you want it to be high density, there's, you know, a color mapped on here. So it's that relationship. And if we have a disconnect with what the council and the community wants, this is our opportunity to fix it.
So, reading through the comp plan, there's inconsistencies in my mind. So a lot of it, we talk about the imbalance in our property tax. We got 92% residential tax base, 8% commercial. And that's not healthy. And I think everyone agrees with that. We have a huge problem with traffic on Main Street. It's the heaviest traveled road in our town, and it's not getting any better. And you look at that, and you look at the desire for more commercial in the sense of retail, restaurants, office space, entertainment. We have a very little of any of that. And everything through here talks about the fact that we are heavily residential, single-family homes. Our median age is 40 years old, so we're not a young community, and a concern about additional traffic, which goes right into heavier, you know, higher density residential on Main Street. And yet there's a few places within the comp plan that seems to promote higher density residential on Main Street. And if that's not what we want, and I personally think that's probably where we're going to go, then that's not fair to the developers. So if to make it consistent with everything else that's in the comp plan, to remove those promotional items regarding higher density residential, then we need to make those changes.
I'd agree, but keep in mind what you just heard from the downtown, that, you know, higher densities promote walkability, and can promote, people being able to walk to amenities, not getting in their car and driving and adding to the congestion. So there's a balance there.
There is, because the reality of it is that we have traffic. We're going to continue to have traffic.
That's right.
We are a bustling, growing community, and we have to stop using that as a reason to stop the growth or to hinder it. We're going to have commercial. If you have commercial, you're going to drive, people are going to still drive the street. What we're trying to come up with is what I'm hearing you say is a way to manage the growth, manage the businesses that we want out there, and then how we minimize the traffic. Good luck. We're not a place that we can minimize the traffic. So my people, we need to accept that traffic is going to be here.
And that's totally true.
And so what commercial, if we designate commercial or residential, we're still going to have traffic. We have to educate our citizens that there is a highway or a bypass that they can use to access different parts of the town. But the reality of it is, in my opinion, is that we need to designate more commercial spaces, something you want to hear. We do need to designate more commercial spaces, and we need to do it not with the overhead of we're going to eliminate traffic, because we're not. So we have to stop using that narrative across the board. What we have to come up with is a feasible way to bring in more businesses. And so that's what you're looking for us to do today, is tell you where we want the businesses, correct? So on this map, I'm seeing strictly 401 or strictly Main Street. Are you saying you want to know for the totality of where we want to put these businesses for our town, or what are you asking specifically you want us to target?
I think it really is where does this board disagree with what has already been approved?
So I want to say this. Number one, I'm not an expert. I'm not the one that did the study. I didn't do that. So, and I have spoken with several developers who are not developing in Rolesville, who have no interest in Rolesville, and who have said that if you don't have the density, you're not going to have the businesses.
That's right.
And so I'm trying to look at that side, taken from people who are not coming here, who have no interest in coming to Rolesville. Some of them aren't even in this state. And so if we don't have them coming into Rolesville, are those businesses going to come? I don't know the answer to that. I do know Walbrook, it took a while to fill up the businesses that they had. Cobblestone, is it full? I don't know the answer to that. Or is it almost full? Almost full. Yeah. So I think that the people are going to come if we have the businesses. But everybody knows people want to move here. Everybody's moving here. So I think it's our job just to be responsible with what we do have. How to change this land use map? I don't know the answer to that. And then if we change the land use map, are we gonna, and we designate this land is for commercial, how long is it gonna take for somebody to develop that commercial property who's looking for something like that? I don't know the answer to that either. Is that as easy as bringing Lafayette Village was mentioned before, something like Lafayette Village, is that as easy without the residential, which Cobblestone had to add, and so did Walbrook, in order for them to be able to bring the commercial to Rolesville? So I don't know what the right answer is.
Exactly. It's like the chicken and the egg.
Exactly.
But my one concern is the fact, and going up and down Main Street, where we are looking at our downtown area, we can't grow more land. So, we have to, in my view, as a citizen, as a business owner, I feel that especially going from Rogers Road up north, I feel that land should be designated commercial. Because again, if we give up some of that space to high density residential, I get that it perhaps it will help to satisfy some of the developers to come in because of the number of rooftops.
It's going to help those businesses that are already here.
But it's if we don't designate those areas as commercial now, even if it might take 5 years, if we develop it all as high density residential, well, we can't take it back down. We lose that space. And that is my concern overall, especially with Scarborough. That's a prime piece right in the middle off of Main Street. And if we lose that frontage, if we lose that space to townhomes, we're not getting that back. And we do have so much development coming down the pike that is already zoned going down Rolesville Road, up and down Averett. So yes, the rooftops are coming. Do I feel like the rooftops have to be right there? No.
If you could zoom in on the Scarborough.
So that has been my particular holdup with this particular property.
To give an example.
I think Jen mentioned Rogers Road. Now, one thing, I think Michael's still here, I don't see him.
Is there?
You know, that comment is one thing.
Yeah.
To solve this, to put commercial along the roads anywhere they can put it. And I was thinking most everything, you look at Rogers Road, everything on your side is pretty much already developed residential, all the way out to the end of the Heritage.
Oh, yeah.
The other side is not, so some places, pull up Rogers Road, because I think a lot that had not been developed, we said was supposed to be commercial.
Yeah, like across the street from where like Domino's and the post office is. You mean like over on that side?
Further down on the other side.
Can you pull up Rogers Road? 'Cause I was thinking, Michael, we may, yeah, you see it purple?
Am I right?
The one thing, that,
Better.
talking to the commercial people, like Austin, one of them, if it doesn't have road front, it's not a good place. And people want a commercial on the road.
No, and that's true, but
If there's some road front that needs to be commercial that's not in this map, definitely we need to change that.
are you talking about Rogers or are you talking?
Anywhere.
Okay, no, okay, I wasn't sure if you were referring to a particular piece of a parcel of land.
That's what we did, I think, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what we asked developers is any kind of really road front that's can be commercial that we need to designate as commercial. And it's a lot of empty spots that's designated commercial. On Rogers Road, you can see some places all the way up there.
Yeah.
For clarity, everything purple is commercial center.
Thank you.
Everything purple.
Thank you.
Everything brown you see in the center
Correct.
is downtown residential.
But see, you live on the right side of the road. And
Yeah, right in front of the Willoughby is far. What you're saying, if it's on the main road, then that
On
needs to be
Rogers.
commercial on Rogers.
yeah,
And then, are you also saying that exclusively on Young Street as well, on the opposite side on West Young, or?
you have to look at it. Even that
It's
little
much like
triangle in
Main
your
Street.
backyard kind of can
So-
commercial. See that little triangle there? That little triangle on y'all side.
Yes, yes. Yeah, but
But-
it's
and-
commercial. It's literally right
It's
beside.
on page 130 in your packet if you want a
Thank
better
you.
But
picture.
it's literally
Because I
right in here.
cannot read that.
It's
But if you
literally right here.
talk about chicken or egg, the chicken's already here. We're over 12,000 people, and if we didn't approve another house, we're gonna have 25,000 people when everything that's been approved is built. So we've got the rooftops coming, and we're not gonna make them any faster by approving something else. So I don't think that's a real good argument. We're working on a plan for parking downtown, and we should be working on bringing more amenities in for the people who live here and are moving here. And that's what we're missing. We don't even have
For
a
the
dry
main
cleaner.
street, for the
For the main
storefront.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that'd be a great place for commercial.
like Main Street. I think we're all speaking the same language on Main Street.
Yeah.
I think we all want commercial for them.
Storefront on Main Street.
Like
So
storefront
where
Main
else
Street.
is left to give us storefront on Main Street?
That's a question. And is there any watershed that we need to be concerned about on Main Street? Just North Main, not South.
North Main and East Young. Yeah.
So when we come off the bypass, I did not see that highlighted on the, right there. Is that considered, we're circled? Are you saying that is?
So coming off the bypass, that pinkish purple color is business and innovation.
Yes.
And so that incorporates what would be commercial. And so if there were to be, so if, for example, we're going to a hotel summit, there would be something that like a business district or boutique hotel in that area would be interested in. It's right off the bypass. It has access points that we would have to work through with DOT, but that is what that. So that pinkish purple color includes commercial, and so does the purple that goes down Main Street in there. The only places that would deviate from what you all are mentioning were if you were to see a brown area on Main Street, then
Only ones are up near that little red
that is
401
correct.
up
So
there.
the brown areas are that are in close proximity to the emblem of 401. Those are high density residential. And from what you all are saying, you would like to see that reflected more so on the Main Street frontage to be commercial across the Main Street frontage.
And on the point of commercial versus residential and traffic, yeah, commercial creates traffic, but it doesn't create traffic during rush hour like residential traffic does. It's
a different type of traffic.
Even if people go to Scooter's Coffee, it's not an additional car, it's someone going on the way to work. If they're going to Local Charm or Pixels, they're going most likely after hours. They're not going while people are going to work. So it is a different type of traffic at a different time frame, so it's less impacting the rush hour traffic that we have a problem with.
You know, I think Wake Forest did a study to find out how much of their traffic was actually from Wake Forest. Are y'all familiar with, do y'all know what I'm talking about? Nobody? Nobody? So I wonder how much of Rolesville's traffic is actually Rolesville people.
Or if they're just cutting through.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the time of day that you're looking at.
Of course it does, but,
You know,
but again, how much of that is not even Rolesville? We don't even know the answer. We won't know the answer. to that.
I think we're not saying there's no traffic.
No, there is traffic.
What we're saying
There's gonna be
is
traffic.
there's going to be traffic, and we can't use the statement of we're a parking lot already. It's going to stay that way, whether it's commercial or residential. We're going to already be a very busy city and town because we're growing. We're at 14,000 now. We have 3,800 houses coming on. Main Street's not going to get any simpler, but we can come up with better ways to functionally handle it. Yes, sir.
I do have a comment. If we're going to be promoting more commercial within the corridor, we also got to think about where the workers are coming from and where they're living. And some of the single-family homes in the community are probably unaffordable to many of the low-wage workers that work in the surface retail type jobs. So that is something to keep in mind, because if they're all going to commute in, that is going to contribute to rush hour traffic.
no, but with that idea, Rolesville is not an island. You know, we do have, in fact, I asked for the numbers. And with what we currently have built and with what is already permitted, we are around 19% single family attached and 5% apartments. The issue that Rolesville has is land usability. So, you know, we are hindered by the watershed. We are hindered by, you know, a lot of the land is already utilized. But you go 2 miles in any direction, and you are hitting these places where those workers may live. You know, we don't have to, we're not an island. So yes, we are working on the diversification of the housing that is available in Rolesville. We've already got the statistics going to show that. So that argument to me is moot.
I don't think so, because I think them having to go 2 miles outside of Rolesville to find housing for their price point, I think is unacceptable.
But for apartments and such, you know, when you start to see lower rent prices, they tend to be older buildings that have been around. We just don't have the older buildings, unfortunately. You know, the older structures burned down in the early 1900s, and we don't have the older apartment buildings.
Right.
In 10 years from now, 12 years from now, you know, when these new builds, anything that is a new build right now is going to be expensive. Not expensive, relatively speaking, right? Places that are going to be less expensive rentals, that tends to be where you see the older buildings that
But
have
if
come
we
around.
have the place for someone to live, my kid just moved out into a brand new development with a roommate. Granted, he has a roommate, but now he can afford it at his price point. So I'm just saying, if we have the space available, that there is somebody that can live there.
And while I understand what you're saying, it's just the land that we have left.
Yes.
Are we going to be putting more residential, you know, at these various, and we can't control what the levels of rent are going to be in certain places.
Correct.
Talk to any developer, and a brand new build, even if it doesn't have the bells and whistles, it's still going to be expensive until they're able to recoup the expenses that they put into that building 10 to 12 years from now. And again, with the townhomes that we have, whether they're rental or purchase, we do have the apartments, which they're having a difficult time even filling those. And they're bringing the
I
price
think
down.
give it time,
No,
and
true.
it did come COVID, so just, we have to give it time. I don't think it's fair for us to say, they're not feeling, we got to give it some time. I do believe.
Wake Forest has built 7,000 apartments.
We'll never be that though.
And
right?
we don't want to be.
Well,
But I'm saying, I had an intern and she did a study. She called 21 apartment complexes. Every one of them had plenty of availability and every one of them was way cheaper than what's available here today in Rolesville. So there's plenty of places for people to live. Commissioner Burnett's point is well taken. We are not an island. There's plenty of places all around us where people can live, and they don't have to live in Rolesville to work in Rolesville.
No, but they can have I believe they should have an opportunity to live in Rolesville.
Absolutely.
If they want to.
Absolutely.
But we have that. You know, with the apartments that are being built, with the townhomes that are being built, whether it's purchase or rental, you know, we do have this happening. And to your point, yeah, give it time to be able to fill up. But, you know, what is the threshold to that? Like, at what point do we have enough of whatever this level of housing may be when we only have 6 square miles within the boundaries of Rolesville? 30 to 35% of that's in the watershed, so we can't utilize that. You know, so it's just talking about Main Street specifically. This is where we have this issue of what are we going to put there? We don't have a lot of space left, period.
Then that's why I think we've all agreed that Main Street storefront should be on Main Street. But I think if it's not storefront, if it's behind it and it's more dense, then that's okay.
For the board's consideration, the red is the downtown, which is a mix of commercial and residential, high-density residential together. And I failed to mention that before. So you've got brown, you've got purple, and then unfortunately, the two together, mixed together, became red. And that's not the way the color wheel works, but that's how it is. So red is both. And I had failed to mention that before.
Both in the sense that each property should have representation of both commercial and residential, or red in the sense it can be either or?
It means that it is the closest to representing sort of the TC town center mixed use cobblestone vision that you're now familiar with. That actually is in the red. The cobblestone project is in the red. So if you're looking to absolutely exclude high density residential, you're going to need to address red as well.
A year ago, we, Mayor, you and I, Mr. McFarland, and I believe the town manager attended an event downtown Raleigh where we went through revitalization of a downtown area. And the main message there was you're going to have residential and you're going to have commercial in the downtown area. And you need to make it work. We didn't spend time talking about traffic. We didn't spend time talking about what makes sense on the long term. We spent time on developing downtown to feasibly work that accommodates the traffic you need and the commercial you need, or excuse me, the housing. There will not be a downtown area in the world that will not have any residential. So we need to accept that. What we need to define today, or quickly, is where we want commercial. I think this is the whole purpose of us being here. We're getting off the mark. The mark is commercial. Where do we want it? Main Street, frontage, yes. Bottom line, I think we can speak to that. Other places, we need to determine that. Downtown Red Center, there's going to be mixed use. If I'm hearing you correctly, that's residential and commercial. Can we put more residential commercial? I doubt it because we don't have the land space. So let's spend time finding where we can put the businesses and not spending time talking about semantics that don't have anything with development. We spent hours in this event trying to put together a historic district that already was built. Did we not, Mayor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good, really good point. I think for this exercise is study them out, and if you know places where commercial need to be, Let's get feedback, and we can make the
Yes.
change. The only thing I have seen in the map, and I'm not sure why it turned out this way, Michael, you may remember, is those properties in front of our Public Works building I thought would be commercial one day. And they don't show up on this map as being commercial. And if that's the case, then I think that's a fix. And I don't know, do you know why it turned out not to be commercial, Michael?
It might have been because that's a watershed over there.
Some of it is, but I don't think along the street is. It's right beside, New Bethel Church.
Yeah, but,
And it used to be a commercial restaurant there.
uh-huh.
And I thought that was gonna be commercial,
We
but
can look into that.
Yeah.
it doesn't show up on this map. But I'll look at it myself, but y'all look at it too.
Yes, we'll look into it.
Right beside Public Works, correct, is what you're talking
It's
about?
right in
Yeah.
front of Public
Right in
Works.
front of Public Works,
Yeah,
yeah.
right in front of Public Works.
That's watershed, right?
I think that ought to be commercial, right off the
I
bypass
think
there.
that's watershed.
And,
Currently designated.
but there may be other places if you guys,
Most of Main Street should be.
well, I thought most of Main Street is purple. What is on where is Main Street that's not commercial or can be commercial?
There's only one pocket, and that's there just below the 401 emblem.
Where?
That brown below the
Yes.
401?
Wait, no, it's zone 6.
Where is that? Like, tell me a name. What?
The Scarborough development adjacent to Perry Street.
But I think we're having the road front commercial even there, right?
So
But according to this,
that's what you all have communicated to them as your desire
Right.
when it comes to that other agenda item, but it's not reflected in the map.
Yeah, it's not reflected, so that would
It's the
be,
consistency that needs to happen.
Correct.
That would be commercial. That
yeah,
little,
I think that ought to be changed too when we change.
so that little square right there on 401, that's the little house
And that's-
that they're proposing to be commercial.
But it looks like the houses along there
Are
are
commercial.
commercial. All the houses are.
It looks like it, yeah.
They're purple. They're purple.
Yeah, I mean, they're purple, right?
but, yeah,
Yeah, these are purple, and this is.
it's so hard to tell on this map. This is where it's like, I just keep having issues.
Yeah, some of the colors look
Well,
the
it's,
same.
to me, it looks
No, it's brown.
brown,
It's brown.
which is downtown residential.
This is brown.
Okay.
Right? No, look here. Okay, so brown is down.
No, I got that, but is that not the purple right there? 401 is not that? Is that not that?
I think it's some opportunities on West Young Street. I mean, East Young Street, if you kind of want to look at that.
Then
And there may have been reasons why. And that property there in front of our Public Works is one of them. Now, I thought they was asking for that to be commercial. But
yeah, that was.
The thing is that I've seen over the last 4 years is property that Michael McFarland, our economic director, worked so hard to maintain because we want industrial to come. And then what I see is a developer come in and want to do all residential and want us to go against everything that we had set as a vision. So I listened to everybody to analyze. I love doing that. To say we need to make a consensus agreement of what we want, start going around in circles, make the decision. If commercial is what we definitely want, let's agree upon that. If we want it to be a true mixed use of a commercial with some residential, let's make that decision. But what decision do we need to make need to be the vision for the comp plan? I know we need commercial. We talk about the tax base all the time. We have an opportunity to actually get it right.
And this plan does identify commercial at various nodes throughout the town, so
Yes, sir.
on top of the downtown.
yeah, so let's get that information. I've noted two, I think, and then the board, if y'all know somewhere, seemed like the Scarborough.
We've already kind of, I was definitely referring to the area down south of Main Street, which was coming onto the bypass area down at the bottom. I think it's already designated for that.
That's designated mixed
Yeah,
use,
that's
town
mixed use.
center or something, ain't it?
Innovation.
It's,
What, like the triangle piece?
well, yeah,
Talking about?
where we come in, when you turn into town, it's that pink area, I think you said is already designated for
Yeah, they-
industrial,
Business and innovation.
business
corridor.
innovation.
They call it the gateway, I think.
And then 401, everything on the brown to the right on the bypass is residential?
Yes.
And that little purple area at the top right-hand corner is commercial?
That's the road to the high school.
That's the road to the high school? And we cannot put any, there's no way to put commercial in the front part of 401 going up the bypass, like, kind of like,
Like where you turn for the high
So
school, that big field?
the brown is,
Where,
it's not that, like, there's that.
know that the brown is downtown residential,
This
which
side of
which
401
allows for commercial.
this side,
On the bypass side.
on this side? That little sliver there?
So
You can't get in
Are you-
that. You can't, he's talking about that, I think he's talking.
The new
point to this little sliver.
401 is access limited.
Yeah.
There's no access.
So I think he's talking about the little piece along the north side of
Yeah, the-
401 there.
Below the residential.
That corner,
Across from the purple.
yeah, you can't get in that corner.
Well, what we could do for that is put a frontage road
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
on
Is
401.
There's got to be a
access
way.
all that, because there's a lot of land that's landlocked.
There's got to be a way to do it, to your
There
point.
is. We just have to decide to do it.
Yeah, I don't know if they will allow that, but we could always ask.
Problem.
But
I mean, you could-
developer,
You could
Dave, what do you
designate
know
a
about,
frontage
what do you
road.
know about tapping off of 401? You know anything? Is that,
Put a new
I
access
know,
point
I
going
know that
to
it is limited as it was a critical part of
The form.
the development concerns for the property owners along there and the compensation that some were paid in order to limit the number of on and off. That's all going to be worked out with DOT down the road. DOT will make the call on that.
And that's a journey.
yeah, I understand
we
there's
know.
a committee that makes that call.
Yeah.
So a committee to look at it.
But theoretically, you could put a frontage road from Jonesville Road all the way up to the farm.
Correct. Frontage roads are used in a variety of parts of the country and even here in North Carolina. Sure.
That's an expensive budget item.
Any other comments for Stephen that you want him to look at?
The manager and I wanted to make sure we brought to the board's attention before this closes out, as you think about things, downtown residential, the brown, nothing is as simple as originally presented. Downtown residential has as its model zoning districts, residential high, which we've talked about at great length, but also NC, which is the neighborhood commercial, as the vision for this area includes ground floor commercial uses in mixed-use developments and might include a variety of retail and office uses along with that residential. So maybe think of it as the lower intensity version of the red that we're already familiar with. So overly simplistic to say it's just residential. That's not fair.
That's the way it is now.
That is the 2050 plan. That is the brown.
The brown with the stripes.
The brown is downtown residential, and the stripes indicates that it's in that downtown intensity corridor. And I'll admit to you, I don't recall all of the details on that. Maybe someone else has that.
Okay.
Well, and right now, if I'm looking at it correctly, that brown,
Yeah.
which does include Scarborough, but the rest of the frontage there on Main Street, it's all still residential, not commercial, even just on the front portions. If I'm looking at this map right, I've had my own issues trying to work with the map.
It hasn't been amended yet.
Yeah,
Nothing
so
has
the
been passed.
the brown allows for commercial
Brown it is.
within the high density residential.
I'm sorry, Eric, could you say that one more
The
time?
brown allows for commercial within the high density residential. So commercial is allowed in the brown, but it being brown does not say that it has to be explicitly commercial. That makes sense.
The purple
Okay.
says it's commercial.
The purple, yes.
Again, it is the vision document. The consultant, as is pretty common now, used existing property lines of the parcels as they're currently configured to draw the boundaries for the different uses. Admittedly, that's more precise than the reality of a vision. the dotted line that you see in the concentric circles, or the adjacent circles, I should say, is just a bubble. That's not expected to be exactly a line. It's an area to look at.
Okay.
Okay.
Last question for you, sir. Has you and Michael McFarland had a discussion of what would make sense to go there?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to have discussions with this overlay committee, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that.
I would love to hear your feedback on that. You guys are the experts. I value your opinion.
Any other questions? Okay, so I guess to make sure we understand the direction of the board, you're going to take these suggestions and any other suggestions, and we'll have to have a public hearing to change the map, right? And maybe bring it back in a recommendation of, I think we're just talking about making sure things are commercial. So things that could be commercial that I thought Michael had a map at one time, had a lot of circles on there. So if some of your circles didn't get on this map, Michael, we may need to talk about it. And because that was one of the focus I thought I didn't have met with the consultants. I know Michael did, but I thought that was a focus of making sure we get all the commercial we could that made sense on the road. So,
In the spirit of, so we won't prolong this, when would you like for us to kind of give you some feedback by, and so we can have a call to action of not just an open call to action? When would you like this complete?
How much time do you guys need? A week? 2 weeks?
Well, and what does this look like for us?
I mean,
This
you can
this
mark
is
up
me
a-
begging forgiveness here.
Mark
since-
up a map with your wishes.
back if you think it need to be commercial somewhere where it's not,
So just like via
email.
email,
whatever.
just
Yeah.
individually
Yeah.
to the planning
I looked at the
department?
map, this says residential, and I think it should be commercial. You
Okay.
can take,
Okay.
we can take a
So
look at it.
you would send it to me, so I can reply to you all with the prior email I sent out to you all that pointed you all to that. But just to streamline it, you would start at the overview pages, and I can highlight that in the email. It's section 6, which future land use. And what it does is it zooms in, it goes through each color and it zooms on each area. And so by marking that up, that would be,
Yep.
I could bring it back. And so a response from each of you would be preferable so that we can understand like what the, each one of yours thoughts on it, even if you submit and you say nothing. But I can outline that in an email to you all. And then we can use that as a basis on recommendations we bring back before you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that. I didn't catch when you wanted the board to give you feedback, did we say?
So it will come down to how much time you all need, as Stephen said, because I can send you this tonight. And so do you all need a week? Do you need 2 weeks?
2 weeks to be safe.
Safe, yeah.
10 days. 2 weeks.
Okay.
Split it in the middle.
Okay, everybody good with that?
Yes.
All right, we'll move
Thank you.
pretty quick on this then.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve, appreciate
Welcome.
that. Let's see, we all good? We only been going about an hour, feels like a long one.
It does.
The next item is a continued discussion and hopefully a decision on
Yeah.
REZ 2505 and ANX 2503 Scarborough. I think you got that too, Stephen, so all yours.
Thank you. I'm not going to say a whole lot about this one. This has been continued to tonight's meeting to further address concerns about traffic that were brought up at the last meeting. 6 new conditions were added, plus an updated concept site plan, which were included in your agenda item. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the developer, who's going to present the changes.
So I guess just to framework everything while the developer's coming up, and Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have closed the public hearing, so we won't have any more public comment. And I kind of asked that you guys bring back what the board was concerned with in conditions, and this meeting is pretty much about the conditions that y'all brought back and the transportation issues that were brought up. So let's kind of keep it to those topics if we can. That's my understanding, right, board?
Yes, sir.
And commercial.
Let me turn my knob.
I think if you hit the circle button, then it will go away.
I think that's his presentation, right? Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So, good evening.
How are you presenting? You don't mind sit down while he's presenting?
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Worth Mills with Longleaf Law Partners, here on behalf of the rezoning applicant. Peter Crossett is here with the development team. Matthew Shuey, the current property owner, is here. Courtney McQueen with Cunity, our engineer on this project, and Matt Peach, traffic engineer with Stantec, is here as well to share some updates on traffic. So again, I'll go just a brief overview. This is a rezoning of just over 13 acres, looking to rezone the portion closest to Main Street as general commercial conditional zoning, and the balance of the site as residential high-density conditional zoning on the remaining 11.4 acres. Within the 11.4 acres, we're proposing 63 townhomes. This plan is consistent with the 2017 plan and the recently adopted 2050 plan. We did get unanimous recommendation from the planning board, and as Stephen mentioned, the follow-ups from the last work session were to discuss updates to traffic conditions as well as provide more clarity on the potential commercial development that is developed on the GC parcel. So we did include additional uses within our prohibited uses list. Those are daycares, government offices, public safety facilities, funeral homes, lodging, animal care, hospital, college, university, cultural facilities, social services, event center, and eating establishment with a drive-through. So not wanting to put a drive-through here if we were to put a restaurant here. And then this really is the list of allowable uses that's remaining within the GC district. We think that this list represents the types of uses that help to make a downtown, a Main Street more vibrant, more walkable, and things that can benefit the community. We've also added zoning conditions that relate to the design and the form of that future commercial. We've included a maximum building height not to exceed 2 stories and 30 feet as sort of a protection against the single family homes on South Main Street. We've set a maximum development limit of no more than 16,000 square feet total, and no individual floor within that development shall have more than 10,000 square feet of gross floor area. So that sort of gives us some flexibility. You could have a building that is, 2 stories with an 8,000 square foot print. You could have a first floor with 10,000 square feet. You could have an upper story with 6,000 square feet. It provides us some flexibility while also giving the town and the commissioner some assurance as to sort of the style of development that may be coming here. We have also offered a requirement that at least 60% of any street-facing building facade shall be composed of either natural or man-made brick or stone or a combination thereof. That's a requirement within the town center zoning district. And since we are on Main Street, we thought it would be compatible for us to take that architectural condition for the town center district and incorporate it into the general commercial zoning district here. And lastly, we have prohibited vehicular parking areas between any future building and South Main Street. So trying to locate buildings closer to Main Street. We don't want passersby to see concrete parking lots when they walk or drive by. We want them to see the building itself. which we think will also lead to a more walkable and a more vibrant downtown. And you can see that here on the updates to the concept plan. Courtney included sort of a future buildable area as well as a proposed parking location located behind the building. That also helps with sort of coordinating a driveway into the GC district with sort of the Perry Street alignment if this collector street is built, whereby those are, the driveway and the Perry Street intersection are directly opposite of one another. You don't have a situation where they don't necessarily line up, and that could lead to some unwanted traffic, some negative traffic outcomes. We use the Privet building in terms of the architectural design and form as sort of the standard for what we would want a commercial building to look like in this location. And then the bottom picture is from the Main Street Vision Plan, where you have those buildings closer to Main Street, not having parking between sidewalk and any future development. There's also a question about the buffering that would be required from those single-family homes along Main Street. The LDO requires that we provide a type 3 perimeter buffer, which does include a wall and various shrub plantings, understory trees, and shade trees. So that is incorporated into the concept plan as well. We also updated our transportation zoning conditions. We did make a commitment to include a left-hand turn lane from the collector street onto South Main Street. And we also included a zoning condition that said any site development plan coming forward on that GC parcel must also perform a traffic impact analysis along with that site development plan submittal. There were also questions about the collector road as it extends south from our property to the Young Street collector, and whether there would be a dedicated left-hand turn lane from the collector street onto the Young Street connector. This exhibit here is from the design team that is working on the transportation network within the town campus site, and they are showing a dedicated left-hand turn lane from the collector street onto the Young Street collector. I did want to note here the significance of the collector street and its ability or future extension north up to South Main Street. Based on the town's TIA for the town campus, that completed development is expected to generate 353 AM peak hour trips and 344 PM peak hour trips, and it's expected to generate over 3,000 daily trips. So with the extension of the collector street, or without the extension of that collector street through our property up to South Main, any visitors who are coming from the west to the town campus district are either going to have to go through that South Main and Young Street intersection, or they're going to have to wind their way through the Parker Ridge development. And for comparison, the 63 townhomes that we're proposing would add 27 AM peak hour trips and 34 PM peak hour trips. So rezoning and development of Scarborough Village in accordance with this rezoning request would allow for the completion of the collector street to alleviate that future congestion from the town campus site while generating less than 1/10 of the traffic that the town campus site is expected to. This is an updated trip distribution exhibit that Matt Peach prepared. Matt, do you want to come up and speak to this?
Hey, Matt, if you would, state your name, address, and also, are you representing the town or are you representing the developer?
Good evening. My name is Matt Peach. I work for Stantec Consulting Services, 801 Jones Franklin Road, Raleigh, North Carolina. Very happy to be in front of you here tonight. I'm here representing the town in this instance. We had prepared, the original study for this. And of course, as we spoke back in January, a new study's not been performed, but, based on the prior discussion that was held last month, felt that this was a good exhibit to kind of demonstrate how the added road network and the 63 townhomes kind of distributes traffic in the area. So what you see on this exhibit is the total amount of traffic to and from the 63 townhomes and how we would anticipate it permeates through the network. So the numbers that you see are incorporated with individual arrows. Those are turning movements. Those are literally left turns, right turns. We can zoom in.
Thank you.
So for instance, here at the main driveway there at Perry Street and Main Street, what we are anticipating or projecting for the number of cars in the morning rush hour, and the evening rush hour. The morning rush hour is without parentheses. The evening rush hour is with parentheses, right? So number of left turns from this development onto Main Street in the morning, 5 cars. The number of left turns from this development onto Main Street in the evening rush hour, 3 cars, right? So we just felt that this would help demonstrate the amount of traffic at each of kind of these very key and important intersections, especially along Main Street, right? So if we zoom back out a little bit, if we go over to Main at Young here, here's another good example. We're talking about, one vehicle going north on Main Street in the AM, one vehicle going north on Main Street in the PM,
Wait,
right?
can you clarify that for me?
Yeah.
One, like, total, 1 per hour, 1 per minute,
Per hour.
1 car?
Yes, making that individual movement. Correct. Because really what we're talking about here is a development that we anticipate generating 7 AM peak hour trips entering and 20 AM peak hour trips exiting.
Oh, just from, like, if the townhomes were there?
Correct. From the 63 townhomes.
Okay, thank you. I thought we were talking about in general. I'm like, I got you beat on this. I can tell you right now.
No, this is most definitely not total traffic on Main Street.
Thank you.
Yep.
I needed that
Yep.
clarification because I didn't know where that math was coming from.
What we're honed in on here is really the amount of traffic that we're expecting 63 townhomes to generate, and what does that actually mean in terms of the intersections along specifically Main Street, the new connector road, et cetera, right? So I felt that this was a good exhibit for you all to kind of be able to look, perceive, and digest, right? As you kind of deliberate and make your decisions.
Quick question, Matt.
Yes, sir.
So just, if I'm looking at it, you're basically saying that we've got 3 cars coming out of 63 townhomes in the morning and maybe a dozen cars coming back in the evening out of 63 townhomes, which arguably is over 100 vehicles.
So, and this gets back into our discussion last month about ITE trip generation, right?
And
So
the peak hour is 1 hour, rush hour is a little bit longer than that, but this is supposed to be the highest density traffic for the AM and PM rush hour, which is bigger than a single hour.
yes, and so developments generate traffic both during the rush hour of the road, right? So what's the heaviest load on the road, right? We refer to that as the peak hour of the adjacent street, right? There's also what we refer to as the peak hour of the generator, right? A good example of that is schools, especially the afternoon peak with a school, right? So there's the PM peak hour of the adjacent road. That typically happens between 4 and 6 p.m. But if we look at like Rolesville Middle School, which has their afternoon bell around 3 o'clock, the peak hour of that generator, which is the school, that occurs at 3 o'clock, right? So there's 2 different kind of peaks that we often end up kind of discussing or looking at. What we try to do is pick the one that's most relevant to your all's concerns, and of course, the concerns of the Department of Transportation, right?
Sure. But common sense tells me with over 100 vehicles, mostly working age people, you're going to have more than 7 or 8 vehicles coming out of there in the morning and more than a dozen going back in the evening.
Yep. But keep in mind, we're talking about 63 townhomes here, right?
Yeah.
So 63 townhomes, we're estimating a total of 27 trips in the morning, right? And 34 in the PM. So the 100 cars, that's not what IT trip generation would estimate.
In 1 hour.
In 1 hour, correct,
So
correct, yes.
In one morning, it could be more than that.
Correct, yeah.
They may be going to Jen's place or something.
That's right. So over the course of a 24-hour period, we would expect over 400 vehicles to be generated, either coming to or leaving from the 63 townhomes.
And I don't want to cut Matt off and derail his presentation or what he was talking about. I do just want to clarify that we're not saying that 3 people are leaving this site at the PM peak hour and 2 people are coming in at the PM peak hour. We're saying that 5 people in the AM peak hour are making that specific movement onto Main Street. If you look down at the bottom, a majority of your trips are using this new street network that the town and this development would provide, which is the entire point of showing this exhibit.
And to worst point, you know, traffic disperses, right? There's going to be some traffic that goes up to Main Street. There's going to be some traffic that wants to go down to the bypass, and they never touch Main Street, right? And what Worth is trying to communicate is that with the new connector road, they have that ability to go south, take the connector over to Young, and never touch Main Street to get over to the bypass.
Sure, but you only have really 3 access points.
Correct.
The Main Street, the connector going north, and the connector going south.
Yeah, the Main Street, Perry Street, and then down to the connector.
Okay.
Yep, those 3.
You actually showing a few cars going through the new subdivision, Parker Ridge, right?
Yeah, we do.
Why would cars go through there?
We do expect some to go through Parker Ridge, quite frankly, because
Might be faster.
well, I believe Commissioner Paul has a point. If you go through Parker Ridge, you might come up to a signal at Main Street, right? So you would be able to cross Main Street a lot easier.
Virginia Water all the way down to Publix.
Yeah.
That may not be the most efficient time-wise, but there might be some people who would like to do that. Yep.
If you don't like waiting. Interesting. Anything else you want to add, Matt, before we ask you some questions?
I know there was a lot of discussion. I mean, even, you know, we had former Commissioner Sutton up here talking about IT trip generation. I know it's after 8 o'clock, and we talked about trip generation a lot tonight, and I know it's overly technical. There was a lot of discussion on that last month. I'm happy to kind of expand on any of that, if that would please the board, or dive deeper into this. I know this is, you know, kind of very in the weeds, but you all have some very good questions to ask, and I want to make sure that I'm doing my best to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for Matt? Any questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, so just to summarize our presentation and this rezoning request. So again, this rezoning is both consistent with your old comprehensive plan, it's consistent with your 2050 comprehensive plan. I would argue that it might even be a little inconsistent with your new comprehensive plan because we are locating commercial along Main Street. The commercial development that we're proposing along Main Street with the conditions on building form, building materials, building location, those are all things that follow and further the goals of the Main Street Vision Plan that Ms. Sutton was discussing earlier in tonight's meeting. The updated zoning conditions provide clarity on the types of uses that may come here, and we think those are the types of uses that are community serving and that attract foot traffic. The updated traffic commitments create both optionality in terms of movement as well as sufficient capacity for the new homes, for the future commercial development, and probably most important to this group, the future town campus that you have invested so much time and effort to design. And for those reasons, we think that this rezoning is reasonable and it is in the public interest, and we would ask that you approve this request this evening. We are available for any questions, and we appreciate the opportunity to come back with these updates. Thank you.
Sir, my first question for you, and thank you for your presentation. Commercial. So you just heard us talk about that for about 57 minutes. Commercial. What phase will this commercial be built?
So I would say as soon as if the rezoning is approved, you're going to see the developer start marketing that commercial space to tenants that meet the criteria of the permitted uses within that GC district. We do not have an end user identified. There's no, sort of lease waiting in the wings to be signed. But I know that they want to start that work as quickly as they can because they don't want to sit on land that isn't being used and is just sort of sitting there as grass. That said, they've got a plan for the 63 townhomes already. So I would expect them to also move quickly on the townhomes with the site development plan for that. It will likely be in two separate development plans between the townhomes and the commercial. So I don't want to say that there's not going to be, a new commercial building that's being developed while the townhomes are being developed. But we do sort of create the guardrails with these zoning conditions to say, hey, future tenant, you meet the criteria for the uses that were allowed. Do you want a brick building close to Main Street? Yes. Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and create a building that is designed for your needs. I don't think this is going to be a situation where they just go ahead and build a building and then hope to fill it. I think they're going to be intentional about who they want to be in that place and then design a building to fit that specific tenant.
And that's my question as far as in with the 63 townhomes. Is there a 50-50 split, meaning once I build 31 or 32, I'm starting with the commercial?
We haven't discussed anything like that. I think the plan for a development of that size would be to do it all in one phase. I don't see, from a development standpoint, I don't think that they would want to split that into two phases. I may, be incorrect, and maybe Peter wants to correct me, but I think when you're talking about 63 townhomes, I think you probably put all of those in one site development plan, and you probably do it in one phase.
The reason for asking is that I've seen us as a board last 4 years actually ask developers, because one thing I don't want to see is no movement along our main street if we want commercial.
I think
all the townhomes are built.
And I think you and the developer are aligned in that, in the same sense that they don't want to just have empty land that they're holding on to, carrying the cost of that land where there's nothing going in that, no commercial development going on that land.
But that can be a part of the condition.
So what would the condition be?
As far as in the commercial, having a certain amount built, so that way there's no phase one, all 63 townhomes, and you put commercial in phase two when it sits along our main street.
I would have to go back to the applicant to see if that's something that they would be amenable to, but I appreciate the thought behind that.
Isn't that something that's already in our LDO?
Something.
That you have to, once 50% of the residential is built, that they have to build the commercial. Isn't that already?
It's in our planned districts.
Okay.
So where you've got mixed use planned district, obviously we've had those situations where you've got hundreds of single family detached homes or literally hundreds of apartments or townhomes. So you'd have to find.
Which color on the map is that you're referring to? Where you were saying that in the mix.
This would be in the zoning district, not the future land use. So activity center, neighborhood center, and town center are the three districts that would require, there's a split. Because typically the scale of this project is very small.
Yeah, thank you, David.
This one is using high density and commercial. Is the two things?
Correct. It is two districts rather than a planned district. That's right.
So they would have to volunteer a neighborhood district requirement like April.
Correct.
Could the board, if it wanted to, and I'm not speaking for the board, limit the traffic from the residential area to only go out via the town hall, town community, town campus corridor, and not exit the residents onto Main Street? the road would be through, the Perry Street corridor, whatever we want to call it, would be a throughfare for emergency vehicles, but they would be restricted to only exit out the corridor.
The applicant and the town could, if that was a condition that the board wanted to propose to the applicant could consider limiting left, right, in, out. The challenge is you're gonna negate the distribution that was just discussed by Matt Peach and just concentrate it all in one direction.
Yeah. And would that actually be feasible?
You could put a sign that says no left turns, and
No
folks would
left turn, I understand that one, but even no right turn, I don't see where that doesn't make sense to me. I understand just to have zero traffic on Main Street. I understand that.
As I understand the proposed condition that the applicant would consider if the board wanted it, traffic, it would be the Hotel California. You could come in, but you couldn't go out. So you would come in off of Main Street, and then you would leave via the Young Street connector. Sorry, I had to do that.
Yes, you did.
That works. Thank you.
Were you living when that song came out?
Wow.
Any other questions?
I just have a question.
Word.
So lodging and private club, oh, I'm sorry, did he answer? Oh,
No, I saw him walk off and then he came back, so I thought he was going to answer that question about the
just
commercial piece.
Waiting for a good time to
I'm sorry.
jump in, but no, we couldn't commit to a condition where we phase 63 townhomes. I'll let Peter discuss sort of the economics of that a little bit more.
Yeah, guys, just with Peter Cross with KDM Development, just with the size of the project, it'll be difficult to do that. You know, the intent is to move forward with the commercial as quickly as we can. You know, as Worth said, I mean, that's the goal here, is to not sit on dirt and move it forward alongside with the townhome development there. So I know it's difficult that we can't necessarily commit to that, but that is the intent here.
You said moving alongside at the same time.
Yes,
You build
that's
them both
correct.
at the same time.
Yes.
You just don't know when it would start.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you know, the goal is to go through the site development process and then see where that commercial ultimately, you know, develops and how we get there. So, you know, I think the intent is to move them alongside with each other.
So is there a possibility that you could sell the land piece, the commercial piece, and then we're stuck?
That's possible, but that's not the intent here. No.
But it's a possibility.
No.
Exactly.
The incentives for that buyer would be the same as for Peter, which is to not sit on land that you just paid a good amount of money for.
And why is it that you couldn't put in a condition that is?
It just has to do with the size of the townhome development. I mean, you know, 30 is not going to, you know, be attractive from, you know, a monetary perspective. I mean, if it was, you know, 150 units, it'd be a different story. But, you know, 30 is just, it's difficult from a site work perspective. I mean, you know, there's just a ton of utilities that have to go into play, you know, the public infrastructure. I mean, it'll just be very cost prohibitive to do that.
I'm sorry, you lost me because I don't understand. So
there's just a lot of shared, you know, costs that go alongside the entirety of the site. So if we're only delivering half, we have to put in that entire road. You know, we've got to put in, you know, the all the main utility infrastructure. There's going to be fire requirements to come in and connect the loop. So, you know, from a lending financing perspective, it's just going to be extremely difficult for us to, you know, monetize the project from if it's phased from, you know, say you've got to build 30 units and then we have to pair it with a commercial piece. It just becomes very complex from a financing perspective.
So you're going to finance the residential and then you're going to finance the commercial after you're at some point?
Yeah, potentially. That's a possibility. It could all be together. I mean, you know, we're so early, it's difficult to exactly say, you know, how it looks, but yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, that's probably the easiest way to do it. You know, if it's all mixed in together, similar to, you know, cobblestone, then it's all typically done under one umbrella. But in this scenario, you know, it's most likely going to be separate. But it just all depends on kind of the market and where things are at.
There is history prior to the requirement, for what it's worth, of an obligation to have the commercial building commenced prior to the final building receiving a CO.
Well, and another question, Dave, would we be able to put, say, a time frame? Like, the commercial needs to be built within, or started within 2 years of purchase?
The challenge for
is that-
enforcement is, or what? You evict all the owners and tell them there's
No,
no
no, 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 I'm just
longer
talking about the commercial portion. You know, is there a,
I think the way 160D was rewritten, it would have to run with the land. The zoning could not. I don't know that we can do reversion, and I'm not sure that you would want to.
okay, I was just curious.
I suppose the other would be to take a commissioner's comment about a condition, and you could limit access to Main Street for use by the residential unless and until the commercial was developed. And so the residential would have to live with, and it may hurt its marketability, for example. There might be an incentive then to move faster on the commercial. I am spitballing ideas and hoping someone will rescue me.
Actually, good spitball.
It is.
And actually, can I just,
Yeah.
feasibility speaking, so just talking about the commercial portion, you know, and I understand the drawing that you have done there. Because in one of the conditions, it was 10,000 square feet on the bottom, 8,000 up top. Am I,
I can,
basically my question is that lot, is it big enough to hold something along those lines?
so we think, I think 10,000 would be
The max.
about as big of a building footprint as you could have, because you've still, you know, with the current LDO, you've still got parking minimum requirements. So I think a lot of what's driving the building size, aside from buffers and the new collector street that's sort of cutting in, is the parkability of that site. What our conditions say is that the maximum commercial development on that GC piece cannot exceed 16,000 square feet. So you could have, say, an 8,000 square foot building footprint, you know, one story in the next.
Sure.
Or you could have a 10,000 square foot, one story building with parking behind that.
Okay.
Again, not knowing what the sort of tenant or tenant mix is in that, for that piece, we wanted to, again, sort of put some bounds on what that commercial development could look like.
I was just trying to
sort of
conceptualize in my head, because like
you look
my
at the,
space, for example, like, okay, the
like the
building is a
Privet
great.
building is
Do
a,
you know about how many square feet that is? I mean, I know there's a second floor. I'm just looking at the footprint of it. And if you don't, that's fine. I was just,
I would be totally guessing.
okay.
But at least in terms of placement, building materials, and just the look of a downtown storefront, I think this is what we were aiming for when we were looking at our zoning conditions and what we could offer to get us to a point that's closer to this than, say, you know, a big parking lot in front of a building that looks attractive to nobody.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and you know, I can add, I mean, you know, the commercial at Cobblestone's been very successful. I mean, we're 95% leased, and you know, I think with the square footage we're targeting here, you know, I feel confident that we are going to be able to get it out of the ground. But like I said, it's very difficult to tie it to, you know, say half the project with the townhomes. It's much different when, you know, you're working with, you know, 150 unit community from a financing perspective and phasing that. But, you know, overall, you know, the way this is structured, and I think Worth and Courtney have done a really good job to, you know, promote that walkability and the success we've had at Cobblestone. You know, we're 95% leased. I do feel, you know, very, very confident we'll be able to find, you know, user or users that will, you know, take that space. And it really, the intent is to move that along. I mean, we've been working on this for quite some time, and we've appreciated your feedback. I mean, we've brought the unit count down, and I think we've kept, our square footage on our commercial up, and, I hope you guys see that. But yeah, I think the intent is to move them alongside with each other.
Yeah, and I'll add, when looking at the comparison between the previous rezoning and this rezoning, our maximum commercial square footage was 20 or 25,000 for 240 apartments. We've cut the unit count by like a fourth, a fourth of what the old plan was, but we're 60-75% of what the maximum commercial could be. So that mix is certainly more tilted towards I don't want to say it's even, but we've tried to keep the commercial component as heavy as possible while, making sure that we're not creating the traffic problems that the previous apartment plan had shown in the TIA. So I did want to make that point as well.
About the buffer.
Yes.
We can go to that page, please.
This buffer?
The one, the wall, the buffer wall, the buffer.
Sure. Yes.
So if I understand you correctly, you are good with perimeter buffer type 3 with the wall and the vegetation or whatever you want to call it, shrubbery and all those things that are necessary. So you're good with the wall. You don't need it to be.
Well, I mean, it's not so much that we're good with it. It's just what the LDO requires.
You're good with building the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll make a point too that that type 3 perimeter buffer applies not only for the GC piece, but it applies for the RH piece as well. So the 4 to 5 single family homes on Main Street are going to have that buffer to the south. And then that piece, that one home that's bordering the GC parcel will have the buffer both to the south and to the east.
Just for the record, it's not going to make or break the opportunity, but I figured, kind of curious if that was something you were committed to with the wall itself, and if so, where? Thank you.
Absolutely. I'd like to do that right. That's right. That's right.
And so, for clarification, just to, again, understand that the wall would be.
Sorry, I'm going the wrong way.
Go to the map that has the whole parcel. In there somewhere.
I know. How's that?
Okay, yeah, right there. So, where the red dotted lines are. So that wall and vegetation would be between the townhomes and the 4 residential.
Yes, ma'am.
Homes, and then, but it's also the same proposed wall and vegetation along the connector street that would back the homes in off Perry?
Not along the connector street. We are proposing, I believe, a fence along the eastern boundary of the collector street to give the neighbors on the east side of the collector street some more privacy.
That's that greenway buffer, right?
Yes. So on the.
Would it be a fence, or would it be vegetation, or would it be both?
It's a fence.
Fence.
Okay. That was, and we had a lot of conversations both in this case and the previous zoning case with the Perry Street neighborhood, and they were pretty happy with having a fence to provide some of that sort of ground level buffer for either cars or pedestrian traffic.
I believe it's an 8-foot fence too, right?
I can't recall.
I believe so.
Okay.
8 foot?
Yep.
And then is it on the, I don't know, north, south, east, west, but on the School Road side of the property, just because there's a red dotted line there, is there any barrier on that point for like your townhomes and such, or is that just going to be open? Just
we're showing
trees?
Yeah, we're showing a buffer, and I'd have to confirm with Courtney what the buffer is along School Street, but we are showing a buffer between townhomes and School Street.
It's like a street buffer.
Yes, sir.
Okay, right, like trees, vegetation, not necessarily a fence or a wall or anything like that.
Right. I think it's more street tree plantings and things like that.
I just wanted the clarification because we had the same kind of, it looks dotted to me from here.
Yeah.
So I just have 3 questions. First of all, sir, what is your connection to Cobblestone? Because you keep saying we're
I work
halfway.
for KDM Development.
Okay, okay. All right. And then back to the list of permitted uses of the land. On there is a lodge or private club. My only concern with private club is that going to be accessible for the entire community? That's a concern that I have. And also, what is minor utility, minor transportation, installation, and artisanal manufacturing?
So artisanal manufacturing could be like a maker space. It could
Okay,
be like an art
perfect.
gallery. It could be, I'm trying to remember what the LDO says, maybe like pottery,
Okay.
sort of that.
Okay.
The minor transportation installation, the reason that I kept that in is because it included like bicycle storage facility. I didn't think it would be in our best interest to rule out including some sort of bike storage in the GC piece. We can.
You mean like bike racks out front? Is that what you
I think
mean?
it would be a little more involved than that. I was really trying to create a list that benefited the community while also not ruling out those sorts of items that could also be, a benefit, whether it's the minor transportation installation, minor utilities. I just didn't want to remove that in case there's any utility work that needs to go on there. If there's any specific uses that you don't want to see, like a lodge or private club, we could cross that off tonight.
I think that needs to come off because I would like for it to be available to the entire community, not I have to pay $500 a month to go there.
Wait, that's,
I'm sure some people would like that, but the majority no.
yeah, we can take that off, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if we could make that offer at the table, but if we can, we will.
And the other thing was with our attorney throwing that spitball that he called it
That's what I
earlier,
was going back to now.
I did like that condition, so that way that we protect the commercial.
So the commercial would be tied to the last CO, is that correct?
That's how many COs can you, is it just the very last one or?
Whatever y'all want to talk about. This precedent, I believe, is with KDM. And the idea was to ensure that they had physically gone vertical with a building and have to complete it. But they had completed the footings to go vertical on a building, which evidenced that they had made a commercial commitment to move forward rather than the problem we had seen in the past, which was that wasteland was set aside by a residential developer who never had an intent of doing the commercial portion.
Right.
And that was that good faith. I suppose what might make the most sense is the final building, but I don't know what order they might go in, but that might be a reasonable way if that makes sense to KDM. They know they have to be moving forward by the time they get to the time they need to have CO in the final townhome building.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm trying to.
Or even access, the other one you spitballed was continuing the access of the connector road up to Main Street.
That's not a condition.
We've thrown around some ideas and we've expressed the concern, unlike a special use permit or a variance, we cannot unilaterally impose any conditions. They have to be worked out between both sides to get to the point that you feel comfortable with the rezoning request.
Any of those minor utility, are there any of those? What
It's up to you.
what are, do you know what they are?
Which one, the minor?
Utility and the minor transportation installation.
Those two, on the left side,
Do you know
Two.
what they are?
two up front, I don't. Minor utility would be like, I don't know,
You might have a copy
Phone
of the
company?
LDO.
what now?
You might have a
We gotta get it worked out now because we don't wanna
What's
say
a-
yes.
What
and
would a
then
minor, what's the
regret it.
example of a minor utility?
I guess what that would look like.
I guess, Stephen, that may be a question for you. If you,
Minor transportation installation.
Yeah,
if you don't think you're going to use it, let's just take it out. How about that? I mean, that may be the easiest thing to
So
do.
it was lodge, private club, minor utility, and minor transportation
Neighborhood.
installation.
Neighborhood.
And preserve open space.
Take that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
'cause We want a commercial, so we don't want it to be open.
which one's that? Oh, yeah, no, we don't want minor utility. We don't want possible water pump stations and all that stuff right there.
Yeah.
telecom,
Yeah.
utility junction box with valve station, street light control.
Sometimes I keep those in because we haven't engineered the site yet, and I don't know exactly what might be required, but
Okay.
given its location and the fact that I think the commercial they would create a stormwater scheme where that stormwater runoff from the commercial would be collected at the bottom of the development where the stormwater pond is for the residential uses.
Yeah, so
I think that would be okay. It's just, I'm always trying to, I hate to prohibit something and then turns out, oh, shoot, we need this for it to be viable.
Yeah.
And not necessarily like a type of use, but something like that where, we may run into a feasibility problem. So lodge or private club, minor utility, minor transportation installation, and preserved open space are the four that the commissioners would like to see removed. I
That's fine.
don't have
Absolutely.
a problem with any of those.
Okay. Any additional questions? And we limited it to, the conditions and anything with transportation. So we kind of wrapped up. Any further questions, anybody? So I think here's where we stand. So I kind of hear two items, Dave.
And I would also say, I know that this is important. If we want to have a condition that ties going vertical on the commercial to the issuance of the last CO for the townhome development, we would support that and be okay with that.
Okay.
We have a,
So Dave, I
Mayor.
guess the question.
Just want a point of clarification. We pulled up the small scale utility. That includes a small scale stormwater facility. So if you want to have stormwater on the commercial property, then you need to keep the minor utility.
And I guess, just point of clarification, maybe Dave could help out with this. These are all principal uses, correct? So like a stormwater pond incidental to the principal use being commercial would still be permitted.
That's correct.
Okay. Correct. Yeah, so that's fine.
okay.
Okay.
All right.
He's still good. So question, Dave, you want to try to do this on the fly, or you rather have some time to work out, especially the form vertical issue with a condition?
Consistent with, if we're just going to limit the uses and strike bullets, I think we can do that right now. If council and I are going to process what we mean by the final the final certificate of occupancy, we're going to need to continue this for 2 weeks.
We can come back with a clean set of conditions that are everything that we addressed tonight in 2 weeks and make this incredibly painless.
I mentioned that because admittedly, it occurs to me right now as I look at KDM, is the last CO from Wake County who will do this. Is it administered on a building by building basis? Is it administered on a unit by unit basis? I don't know, and I'm not going to find out tonight.
Townhomes, like the block of 5 townhomes.
Right.
It would be a CO on that block of
That's fine.
5 townhomes, not just like an individual unit, right?
Yeah, we can do that.
Whether it's the 63rd townhome or the 58th through 63rd townhome, I think, that seems to be okay either way.
So let me make sure if I'm following everybody correctly. So Worth, you and your group is asking to give you time to put this condition together. An attorney, you're asking to give time to put the condition together, is that right?
As I was reminded by the manager earlier today, I serve at your pleasure.
I know.
So I suspect the board would like to dispose of this. I am more comfortable now after hearing this comment. Regardless, we're going to need to have a signed set of conditions from them anyway. If it makes sense to everyone, continue it for 2 weeks. If there is nothing exciting beyond what has occurred here today, you would expect to see this on the consent agenda at your next business meeting. Any board member can pull it. And I'm going to assume that the applicant, now that assumes that there's support for this case, which is what I'm looking around the room. I don't know. If you can't deny on the consent agenda.
Yeah, I would say let's just leave it on a regular agenda item.
Regular agenda.
And we will limit it only to, no more discussion, from anyone. And we'll look at the conditions and make a consideration. So it kind of be, it won't be a continuation of discussion. It's sort of a,
You're postponing the
from
vote to
attorney
your,
on the new
yeah.
conditions and a consideration. So it'd be more of a consideration thing. And we'll limit to that. Just you give update on what the conditions is and we do a consideration.
Okay.
Because you're like me, I'm not exactly sure how, that's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah, I can work with Mr. Neal and make sure that that language is acceptable for all parties involved, so.
Is any objections to that direction?
None
No,
from
sir.
me.
So we need a vote for continuation one more time. Right? And
You can
okay.
do that.
Huh?
That's appropriate. Sure.
So if anybody will just so move my verbiage there and put the date of the next meeting, whatever date that
So
was.
moved for March 3rd.
Second.
And I know we got a public hearing, but I think this should be pretty short. I mean,
Hearing is closed, so it will be just with the board and no presentations.
so what,
Yeah, just making sure it's
Just making
cleaned up properly.
because this is really not a public hearing no more. This is just,
The vote.
it's not, we don't have to say that anymore. Okay, so, did somebody make a motion to?
I did, so
People
moved.
did.
March
All right.
3rd.
So I got a motion second. Any further discussion? Not hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sounds like the ayes have it. Ayes
Thank you
have it.
very much.
Motion approved. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Worth. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. I think Stephen, well, actually, is Michael coming up next. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. I think we're going to take a quick recess. So, so with that clock there, be back at 8:45. My underst-
6:30?
Hmm?
I'm sorry.
My understanding is we only have 2 items left, which is economic development incentive discussion by Michael, and then the CTP amendment on classical way to talk about. So with those 2 things coming up, I hope we can wrap it up fairly quickly. So let's take a break to 8:45 on that clock there. So thank you.
Mike.
Recess and finish up our work session for tonight. We got 2 items left. First one, economic development center discussion like we want to have. But you want to introduce it?
Yes, before we dive back into business, into the business part of our, well, the work session part, since it's not technically business, I wanted to introduce our 2 new hires, 2 new members of our Rolesville team, our executive team and department head directors, Ms. Chandra Wright and also Mr. Scott Miles. That's our new HR director on the right and our new town engineer, newly minted in both positions as of this week. Last week, Monday of last week. And so we're so thankful to have them on our team. They have jumped in and they have full traction and are going full bore and also experiencing our town board meetings in real time too. If you all want, I didn't know if you wanted to step up and say anything, but at the very least wanted to acknowledge them so that you all could have faces to names that you've been seeing in emails.
Welcome.
So glad you're here.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Moving on to the next agenda item tonight, I just wanted to provide an introductory overview of economic development incentives and to hopefully leave you all with a general understanding of how incentives work in North Carolina. Staff wanted to have this conversation, especially as the town may be approached from time to time by commercial developers seeking financial assistance when locating or doing a project in Rolesville. And I'm going to ask the town attorney to assist me and further elaborate on any of the topics we discussed, just in case he sees anything that I could have said better or if I missed anything. So, and kind of just to get us started, here's sort of an outline. I'll speak a little bit about what economic development is, and then get into what the law says towns can and can't do regarding incentives. Cover some of the key things to consider when granting incentives, look at some of the procedural requirements involved, and then we'll briefly take a look at Rolesville's current policy, and you guys have that in your packets tonight, Rolesville's current incentive policy. And then we'll also touch briefly on the incentives offered by the county and at the state level. I owe a lot to Professor Tyler Mulligan at the UNC School of Government. He's written a lot on this topic, and so I've relied heavily on his research and writings. You'll see also in your packets, there's a great article that he did, a blog on incentives in North Carolina. So first off, just to kind of give you an introduction again, what is economic development? So economic development is the programs, the policies, the activities that seek to improve the economic well-being and quality of life for a community by creating and retaining jobs and providing a stable tax base. Ultimately, it's a revenue strategy for a community, generating additional tax dollars from new business investment. An expanded and diversified tax base keeps tax rates low for residents. Growing more and better jobs gives people dignity, and the means to support themselves and their families. And I wanted us to think about what economic development is before we delve into economic development incentives. And this is kind of the first part of a 2-part series we're doing. In contrast, this is economic development and economic development incentives is kind of separate from what the planning department does when you think of development for the overall community. The planning department guides the long-term physical growth, land use and overall development of a community. They do the comprehensive plans, enforce the zoning ordinances, review site plans and subdivisions and things like that for the LDO. My presentation tonight, like I said, part of, is the first kind of conversation we wanted to have. Next month, I think we have on the schedule, if the schedule allows, we wanted to have the planning department present on the development review process. So that would touch on site plan review, the fees involved that developers pay when they come here, and the procedures a developer or a business owner must follow to bring a development concept to fruition in Rolesville. So I kind of just wanted to separate those 2 ideas for us. Tonight I'm going to be talking about economic development and the tools to attract commercial development that hasn't come here yet, and we use that to attract a business or a company. And then next month, the planning department's going to talk about the development review process. Once a business is here, what do they go through? What does a landowner go through? What does a developer or a business go through to build something in Rolesville? And I bring this up sometimes because I think we hear from businesses occasionally like, hey, it was hard for me to get my business going in Rolesville, or I had to go through a bunch of things. And so they're probably not talking about incentives because they're already here. So they might be talking about that development review process and some of the fees that all towns charge for development. There's fees to develop, and that's just part of doing business in Rolesville. So that conversation will take place later on, and the board will have the opportunity to see if do the fees make sense for us currently? Does our development review process make sense for us currently? But tonight is going to be the economic development incentives piece of that to get a business to come here, first of all. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that before we started. All right, so to dive into incentives, the North Carolina Constitution actually prohibits state and local government from giving money to a private enterprise unless it is in exchange for a public service. Local governments aren't allowed to give gifts of public property or funds to private entities, except when in consideration of public services, or in other words, when the public gets something in return. So this is kind of the key foundational piece from the Constitution when we start thinking about incentives. And incentives do involve payments of public funds or private or property to the private sector. So how do we define that public purpose? How do we determine that a public purpose is being served? We find the answer in case law, specifically the case Moretti versus the city of Winston-Salem in 1996. Prior to 1996, aid to private corporations had been determined to be unconstitutional, so you couldn't give incentives in North Carolina. In Moretti, however, after watching North Carolina lose manufacturing facilities to other states, the state Supreme Court decided that local government incentives for private companies do serve a public purpose because they generate a net public benefit by creating jobs and increasing the tax base, which might have otherwise been lost to another state. So local government can't give aid to the private sector unless it is determined that the public gets some benefit in return. And that public benefit is further defined, most importantly, by the creation of jobs, new jobs, and by enhancing the tax base. And then some other secondary considerations are also if you if a company comes in, they're diversifying your economy, so that can be taken into account. And then also if a company is thinking about going to South Carolina or Virginia, and your incentive helped that company come here to North Carolina. But the big things to remember with incentives, they're in return or in exchange for public benefit, and that's been defined really as a business coming in and creating so many jobs and increasing the tax value. They're taking vacant land that has, nobody's really paying much taxes on it, and they're going to build a structure on it, and they're going to improve the value of that property that then increases tax revenue to the town. Getting into some procedural requirements, state statute does list some procedural requirements when government considers incentives. These are making a determination that the incentive is necessary for the project to move forward. So in other words, but for this incentive, this development, this company won't come to Rolesville. So this company or this development needs some help. They need help with infrastructure. Their pro forma doesn't quite match up. They don't have the funds, and they need a little bit of help to get here. So you have to make that determination. State statute also mentions having a written agreement being in place. Everybody might remember this. We kind of had something similar with Cobblestone when we did an incentives agreement. So that needs to be in place where you're kind of highlighting and describing the amount and the type of incentive. And then when you grant incentives, it does have to go through a public hearing, similar to like a rezoning case, public hearing, properly noticed and all that. And then one other thing with cash grants, they must be in the form of reimbursements rather than upfront. So in other words, performance-based, which means the private company doesn't receive any cash incentive until after they create the jobs, after you've seen that the tax revenue has come into the town, it has increased. So you don't give anybody money, and then 6 months later, that company's able to leave, and you never hear from them again. So that's why the stipulation is in here. They're reimbursement-based or performance-based. The company or the business or the developer performs per the development agreement, then they get the incentive. How am I doing so far, Dave? All right. All right, so what can local governments do? What are some types of incentives? Again, we refer to general statute to see what's allowable. Governments like Rolesville can purchase, can assemble different parcels, can put money towards developing, can convey that land to a developer or a building for commercial or industrial use. I think that's what the town kind of did over the last 25 years or so in assembling the different parcels that are where Cobblestone is now. So eventually it became a marketable piece of property up there at the intersection of about 11 acres, 10 or 11 acres. And then that's why a developer like KDM came to us and said, oh, we're interested in doing something on that 10 acres. The town owned that land. So the town had the foresight at the time in a good commercial area of town to start piecing together properties to then be able to sell that. Towns can also pay for infrastructure, such as extending utilities. It might be that a company wants to come and their site is still, 100 feet from the nearest water line, or Duke Energy needs to run their utility. The town might say, well, in order to get you to come here, we'd love to have you. Let us pay for that utility extension for you. The town might pay for due diligence and site preparation. So again, we can purchase a site, and then let's say it's rural farmland right now. We don't know how useful it is. The town can spend money on doing due diligence to look at how suitable the site would be for development. We could prepare that site and get it up, do all the tests that need to be done, soil tests, and things like that, to get it to a point where then you can market the site to a potential commercial developer, and we can say, hey, this has been prepared. We already put in the money that you would have had to spend, so we're going to put the money in to prepare this site so it's almost shovel ready or pad ready for you when you come. And then we can pay for rehabilitation of historic structures, and then also provide cash incentives, which is an interesting one because cash economic development incentives are widely used by local governments to induce companies to locate in their jurisdictions, but in the state statute, it really doesn't have language authorizing cash incentives. You get that authority rather, and maybe our town attorney can elaborate on this, but kind of the way the language is written, it's called sort of a general grant of authority for making appropriations for economic development. So in other words, the authority to grant cash incentives is kind of based or implied in this broad interpretation of what local governments can do. All right. Guess what we can't do, though?
What can't we do?
What can we do? All right, so general statute prohibits local government from exempting property from being taxed or otherwise refunding all or any portion of property taxes that are required to be paid. In other words, tax rebates or reimbursements are not allowed as an incentive in North Carolina. However, towns may and often do consider the amount of future tax revenue a new development will bring in when determining the amount of incentive to be offered, so as not to grant more money and incentives that the town would receive in additional tax revenue. You don't want to give more than you're going to get eventually over time from the new development.
The term that you will hear from those out of state is, I'm seeking tax abatements. Abatement is a term used in other states. That is not available. It's tough when you say no, because sometimes they're not still in the room when you say but. So we really do try to say cash incentives for tax base and job creation rather than responding to the tax abatement no answer. But you'll hear that the most, tax abatement.
Yep. So yeah, and towns can avoid the appearance of the cash incentive looking like a tax abatement or tax rebate by basing the incentive on more than simply the capital investment alone in the future tax revenue that comes in. But also, when we're thinking about incentives, think about basing it on, how many jobs are you going to create? What are the wages, the average wage of those jobs you're going to create? And any other factors unconnected to kind of property tax revenue. Because once an incentive is kind of contingent on factors other than taxable property, even if we do calculate it as a percentage of tax revenue, future tax revenue that's going to be generated, it'll be difficult to characterize the incentive as a property tax exemption or classification. So towns should always seek to ensure incentives serve a diverse public purposes, and then again, ensure that a written agreement is in place in accordance with the statutory requirements to govern incentives. So that brings us to Rolesville's incentive policy. We do have one. It's in your packets. This helps me when I do my job, helps to guide the decision-making around incentives. It's actually very well written. It was approved back in 2012, but it does cover all the bases from a legal perspective. And that being said, though, it could use a little bit of a refresh. For example, I think it mentions an incentives committee that kind of helps determine incentives, and we've never established that. So it's something.
Have we ever used the one that we approved?
The incentive policy.
Have you ever used it?
I've used it in conversations when developers have approached me.
Never actually used it.
The incentive policy was used by the outside firm as a component in the economic development agreement for Cobblestone. That's the only time I know of that it was referenced.
But we really didn't give them a lot of incentives either, did we, other than the trade-off for the impact fees for recreation?
So I think Michael's going to get to it in another slide. There's an understanding as to the cap.
Yeah.
Okay, here it is.
Yeah.
So in order to figure out what sort of incentive might be available, there's a cap and a recoupment period, and that calculation was recited by the board in its resolution as to calculate the total incentive package that was proposed as a performance package to the Cobblestone partners, which became KDM back then. So that was how it came to be. Did it happen in the form of an incentives committee that met or anything like that? No. It was really used to ground the statutory economic development agreement that the statute requires.
And I think Walbrook, we didn't have any incentives. I think on the escalation of the road, Main Street, we did something. That wasn't to them, that was to, DOT.
There was an infrastructure reimbursement agreement, but that, while that may have a business culture, pro-business vibe to it, it is not within the incentive policy.
I think the issue, if you want to call it an issue, I think it's maybe a good thing to do this for, like you said, it's job focused stuff. If somebody's going to build something here, it's going to have a lot of jobs involved. But I'm seeing towns more and more, Dave, using it for shopping centers and retail commercials. And I think Garner just gave a big incentive for a shopping center, and I think Fuquay gave a big incentive for a shopping center. To me, that's really, I'm not even sure how to get by in doing that, but something I hope we don't, because once you start, you can't stop it. Everybody wants some of their money. But to bring in a factory with jobs or something, I could see that. Maybe even an office building has a lot of jobs in it. I could see that,
Right. So back one slide, our current economic development policy runs more in line with best practices. So you do not provide presumptively economic development incentives for commercial services that are serving your residents, nor do you provide incentive money for residential development. There's some exceptions to that. We now see incentive packages for affordable housing. That's a new development that did not exist at the time that our policy was adopted. And typically that is done in a different policy specifically for that purpose. But since Moretti, the safest path is the one that we've been on, which is one that really tries to think about employers that are going to be employing at a wage that is above your median or above your county's median, and maybe has some other things that would make that sort of corporate recruitment a jewel in your crown.
How far is this from the state policy? I know that state does economic development policies, and they always sound like it's connected to jobs that's brought in. So theirs is sort of restricted to just, I mean, I don't hear them doing shopping centers too much, but, but they do the big factories are bringing in a battery company or something like that, a manufacturing company.
The economic development theory is that if you can recruit the employer, you will get the residential and commercial growth. That comes along for the ride. And you can see that really in the history of the United States and towns that have grown and the towns that have failed. So that's where the partnership, and to a lesser extent these days, the Department of Commerce focuses.
And we've just been a really highly desirable place to live, so it would be foolish of us to use money to incentivize residential development because it's coming in anyway, and then think about, as the town attorney said, the retail and the restaurants following the rooftops. So
they come in anyway.
Yeah. So
Michael, what are you what are you informing? Do you need us to make a recommendation of some form, or because I mean if you feel that this needs to be updated in a manner, what do you need from us?
Yeah, that's it. Tonight was a discussion. Like I said, the first of two discussions. I think it stems from businesses and companies maybe asking us, hey, what can you guys do for us? And there's two sort of pieces to that. And one is the economic development incentives piece to attract business here. So yeah, I would, tonight is purely educational, so you all have an understanding, and then I think a good action item for us to be would be to take a look at our current incentive policy. It's just 2 pages, and I can make some recommendations, and we can look at tweaking that and refreshing it and kind of bringing it up to 2026.
Right, in comparison with other municipalities and maybe how it's been used.
Yep, and if we want to have an incentives committee, or we just want to say the town board makes that decision together.
That was my question. Was who was the original incentive committee?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't sound like you ever created one, do we really need one? And then you mentioned what other towns are doing. I have a question just about, you mentioned you're hearing things in the streets. Is the incentive plan what is being brought up the most, or are you hearing other things from businesses in regards to Rolesville?
Yeah, I mean, it's really not yeah. So honestly, I haven't been approached that much about incentives. It's only happened a few times. And again, I think it's going to happen when a larger company, the factory or the life sciences firm that's going to bring 500 new high-paying jobs here, and they're going to build a 200,000 square foot facility. They'll ask for incentives. But these smaller businesses that we've attracted so far in the mixed-use development, they haven't quite been asking. So I think to the other conversation that'll come up next month or later on, that's kind of the development review process where you've gotten here, and then businesses are maybe finding that a fee is too costly, or the process takes too long. And a lot of times it's stuff that's outside of our control, because we depend on, as a small town, we depend on Wake County, DOT. There's a lot of entities involved, and when a business starts with an idea to finally getting to be built. And we'll have that conversation next time. But for tonight, it's purely educational. And then one of my action items was, let's take a look at the current incentive policy, refresh it for what it's worth. I think there's a lot of good pieces to it already. So, and it's just kind of making some tweaks there. If we don't want to have an incentives committee, if we do, if we like that 1% benchmark. So as an example, Cobblestone initially proposed that their development was $55 million. So the benchmark incentive would be around 1% of that, of $50 million, is about $500,000. So when you're talking about incentives, you're not paying for half of a development or even a big share of the development. It's really icing on the cake. The developer should be able to do this, but they're asking us, they're saying, I can't quite get over this, or I can do, a 50,000 square foot building at this price, and that's what I can do feasibly. If you guys would like a 70,000 square foot commercial building, I just need, this little incentive, or I need the infrastructure there, or if you do have the land already in your ownership, could you discount the land for me so I can build this? But it's really icing on the cake. If a $10 million development came in, you're just looking at, right now, we would give somebody around $100,000 towards a $10 million development. Does that make,
Well, yeah, it's like free gift with purchase.
Yep. So, so that percentage could be looked at. Right now, it's just kind of a guiding principle, but it's in line with what a lot of towns do. It could go to 2%. It could, so those are things we could talk about. And going back to this list of considerations, if there's anything else, I think maybe identifying areas of town too, like the Business and Innovation District, what we're calling Gateway 401. We could set up something special for that area. Like, hey, if we get this going and you come in here and propose such and such, we would consider certain types of incentives for that.
A question for you, sir. Before any approval of any incentive, state law does require us to have a public hearing about where the incentive goes, correct? Okay.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be able to do anything. It would all come back before you. There'd probably be months of discussion from when a business or a company says, hey, I could use some financial help, to when we finally draft an agreement and write up something that is finalized.
Only because it gets short shrift, because cash is king. The other major component that you see that is the more traditional North Carolina incentive idea is the assembling of land and the commitment by the municipality or the county to pay for the in-the-ground infrastructure to serve the site. And so the theory of this goes, this is a better, smarter way to go. Even if you are bringing the investment earlier in the process, because you don't have to wait for performance. So that in that way helps the company if they can see the value. And secondly, even if the project fails, you have invested in your own community because you now have that infrastructure that is still there. So that is the pre-1996 best you could do, and is still often part of a package, so that in an industrial recruitment idea, you have the money that would be the carrot at the end after they've performed, but there's also a way to assist the investment at the front end, because you're taking some of that construction cost burden off the private entity's shoulder by investing in your own community's infrastructure. So just mention that piece because it often gets overlooked.
And if we have that infrastructure already in place, that would make it that much more attractive.
Right. Yep, definitely.
And you can see that in many parts of North Carolina, both good and failed projects, where lots of roads got built for a new industrial park that never materialized. We all remember seeing those along interstates. So that's also a balance with some risk in it for the local community. You want to make sure you're not getting too far, Winter Olympics time, too far out over your skis.
If you think about the Gateway 401 area is where we have Fowler Road extension planned in our community transportation plan. That'll be a huge cost for a developer coming in. That could be something where they say, if we like their development and want to incentivize it, maybe the town pitches in to build some of Fowler Road extension right there. But again, you don't want to get in that situation where you're building the road to know where that hurt. So you just got to be careful about it, but that could be an option. Quickly, I'll just, Wake County. So Wake County has kind of some different tiers, and it's all based on the minimum investment coming in, the minimum amount of jobs created, whether it's 50 or up to 250, and then the average wages of those jobs. And I think those percentages there under the salary minimum refer to like 200% of the average median wage in Wake County or something. So you can see how they kind of divvy their incentive policy up. If $50 million comes in, if $100 million comes in at 50 jobs, here's what we can give you back, 50% of that new tax growth over 8 years. And again, it's not a tax rebate, but so they do it like this. The state, very similar. I won't go into all the ones. I think I included some in your packet on some of the incentives through the Department of Commerce. Again, they're always looking at the number of jobs being created, the number of that amount of investment in the community, and the kind of the how much is it going to impact the state of North Carolina? And these are, again, for those big projects, you know. But they'll also work with us. So if we do ever, you know, hear from a large company or corporation that wants to come here and needs 50 or 100 acres to do something big, Wake County and the state will work with us. And a lot of times it'll be, you know, Rolesville and Wake County offering incentives together, or Rolesville, Wake County, and the state offering incentives together for those big projects. And lastly, I think I kind of went over this a little bit, just some proposed action items. Our incentive policy already has the core pieces in place, but I think, you know, it's worth tweaking it a little bit and just updating it and refreshing it. So if that sounds good to everybody, staff can start looking at that and maybe at a future meeting, bring back another version of it. And I don't know if we'll figure out a process for getting feedback maybe from the board on that.
So do we have to create a budget line item for this?
I don't believe we have one now, and we do have an incentive policy in place. So
Yeah, but if we was to dish out $500,000, where would it come?
yeah, right.
Like, how do we build
Yeah.
that pot?
Well, I would think, you know, you went through that, you know, Wake County and the state. I would think they have a budget item, and then once they reach that cap for the budget, you know, whoever, you don't qualify.
Right. Well, and the idea too is you're recouping that money in about 36 months. Some towns will go up to 5 years. So you need the money now, right? But you're actually taking from your future tax revenue that's been created from that development. So overall, the net public benefit results in so yes, you might need some of that money up front. And we were talking, we had to figure that out with Cobblestone when the economic development agreement was in place, how we were going to do this. But, you know, the finance department knew, okay, we're giving this now, but over the next 3 years, this is the tax revenue they're going to give us. So
the question is whether those funds were earmarked and whether we have them.
yeah, right. So,
And that's the economic development agreement, which is executed by the manager following approval of the board and signed by the finance officer under the Fiscal Control Act. So it's a future obligation of funds that will come in the future.
I think answering that question should be really up here.
Yep.
So we understand what we're getting ourselves into.
Yeah.
How we're going to support it.
Yeah.
So that will support the fund.
In long term, I think in the budget, we've started to think about how do we prepare someday when an opportunity does arise where the town can maybe purchase a large parcel of land. So we've tried to, I think Amy does have that in her CIP chart. It's kind of way out a couple of years in the future, but where we start as a town to put aside an economic development fund that, you know, when the opportunity arises and, you know, there's 300 acres for sale for $5 million and we want to control it and do something with it, then we're able to make that decision. But
Dave, can we borrow money from a restricted fund?
No, the funds that we have, you can amend, well, it depends. What's the restricted fund you have in mind?
Come up, like, for example, the water sewer fund.
No, that's a charter fund. So
You got a plan to pay it back. So your time, can you?
not to the best of my knowledge, but I would look into it. it is interesting that, and this is something that has come up by a commissioner in a question in prior years, we don't have much need for the funds that previously accumulated in that account, but you could imagine them being used for an incentive purpose in the event we were to develop infrastructure for our own benefit by essentially accelerating Raleigh's process. Would be a reasonable use for those monies.
I was thinking, I don't know, we gotta look at the chart, because I think I was told at one point in time we couldn't use it for extended work on it, that kind of thing. It had to be used for wastewater treatment and things like wastewater, generation, just extended work.
We would need to take a look at it. Yep.
But I would think if we could use that for economic development, even like you said, you're gonna get it back over time.
Right.
Yeah, just borrowing it from myself. That's something to think about. It ain't sitting there doing nothing. Well, it is. It's earning a little interest for it.
We'll defer to the finance director on that one.
Any other questions for Mike? Thank you, Mike.
Yep,
Appreciate
that's all I have.
it. Something back.
Yep.
The last item is Community Transportation Plan, CTP. Amendment, Classical Way, just to set Stephen up while he's getting set up there. This Classical Way is over in that subdivision.
Elizabeth Springs. Atticus Woods.
Actually, the stub out is in Elizabeth
Elizabeth Springs, yeah.
And then it stubs out into, now showing the commercial,
Atticus.
Commercial Atticus. And I think our CPI says that we have to do that unless we make a change. And I think what was geared to was putting almost like a big collector street from that goes through the commercial, bypass the commercial right through there, which the road can fit like that. That set it up pretty well.
Yeah. This community transportation plan was adopted in 2021. And if you recall, the land use plan was just recently updated. So there is probably a need to update this plan. For instance, in the Atticus Woods, this did not envision the commercial component of Atticus Woods, which it's applicable to tonight's discussion. So this is the development site that's been under discussion. You can see the dashed lines are a local collector, and that's been part of the consternation of the neighborhood to the south. And you can see that east-west community collector was supposed to continue through to the east, but that's now where the commercial component is. So the developer has proposed to carry that street to the north to Wade Avenue. Are you following me? So, so that is.
This is the way it is today.
This is the way the transportation plan reads.
Because I'm understanding we told them to do it the other way.
At the planning board.
But it doesn't really match this.
They amended it because of the commercial component and brought that little stub to the north. There still is connection to Wade Avenue, but it's through a private.
Connection coming out of
through the commercial.
Out of commercial.
But it's private. It's not a public road. So this is actually our plan. There is a deviation with the Atticus Woods development, meeting the general intent, but not quite exactly following the plan. So the other piece of this is
that would be less restrictive right there than what we've seen. Because, the cut through comes out on commercial side.
Yeah. But then you've got a road bisecting their commercial site. just to follow up, so this is what a community collector looks like. It's a 34-foot wide street, which I believe is probably the dimension you see in the development to the south, in that 60-foot right-of-way. I guess that's it. Yeah.
Well, that,
So
go ahead.
the only other thing I was going to say is we do have lateral connection requirements, so the neighborhoods do need to be connected. So whether it's a collector road, it still needs to be a road there per the LDO, but not necessarily a collector.
That's for emergency trash and other.
That and to keep local traffic off the highway. If you want to go from one neighborhood to the other, you don't have to get on the highway, creating congestion and traffic, which is obviously a huge issue here. So these local connections give alternatives to hitting the main roads that are commuter roads.
And to be honest with you, this drawing, I don't fully understand it, but I know what I originally saw was the connector road was to connect Waite Avenue all the way through the commercial portion of Atticus Woods and then into Elizabeth Springs. And the concern there was having traffic going in through their neighborhood into the commercial portion, then to be able to get out onto Waite Avenue by avoiding the light at the corner. So what are we proposing here? Because I don't think that there necessarily needs to be a connection from a commercial standpoint, from a commercial portion of a mixed-use project like this into just a residential community. So I know one of the papers that, Ronnie, I think I saw you circulating it. So according to our transportation plan, there has to be connectivity from neighborhood to neighborhood, correct?
Our LDO requires connections between neighborhood to neighborhood. This is the local collector plan, so this is trying to connect all the neighborhoods together with routes.
But would what's proposed here actually connect the two neighborhoods, or is it connecting Elizabeth Springs to the commercial portion side of the proposed Atticus Woods?
Well, this was conceived without any commercial.
Yeah.
This is the old comp plan. Now we have a commercial component
Right.
with the new comp plan. And so because of that, the developer took that eastern section of this collector road, that little stub that goes through the commercial, and brought it north, creating a division between the commercial and the residential.
See, I don't think that's right, because really this commercial should be like that drawing. The commercial should come out of Wade Avenue as a collector street. That's what it should. And we're not requiring them to do that. We're saying, we're using the collector street to come all the way down to the neighborhood and go out. And see, that, I don't even match that drawing there.
No, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, now we know that there is a commercial portion to it, so why are we even looking at old
If you do that
plans?
drawing, it's not a big deal, because you could check that little stub up to the residential and be done with it. So I don't understand why that the collector street comes out and it goes straight across to the other side. See that? It kind of comes out. I guess that's, what is that street on the other side? That's,
With the yellow one?
it's Old Pierce Road, maybe?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
Old Pierce Road?
Yeah.
I think?
Yeah.
I think it's Old Pierce Road.
Yeah.
So the collector street's supposed to come out to Old Pierce Road, according to that. And what we're seeing is it's coming out to the neighborhood.
Yeah, and I wasn't here, so I don't know the genesis of that decision, but,
But that's the issue. I
yeah.
think. And, you know, I'm kind of wondering what you want. I think the only thing we can do is say that collector street in the neighborhood needs to connect to the collector street or the street in the neighborhood.
To the residential
Neighborhood to
connection.
neighborhood, if there's a
Correct, the
commercial
residential connection.
portion to that, that is, there does not need to be a connection from neighborhood into the commercial portion, because that's just going to lend itself to all kinds of traffic issues within that neighborhood that's already established.
So you don't want even a private driveway from this north-south road through the commercial development?
No,
I think it needs to be like that. I mean, that's.
like the way it shows here, there's no connection.
I'm confused because they said that they couldn't, this is the way they had to do it, and it don't even match that.
Because what are we supposed, like, is there a discussion point on this? Do we have to?
Mike Gellibarger is not here, so let me fill in some gaps. The comprehensive transportation plan requires that the connections be made at the standards of the roads, but it doesn't tell you the exact route. That's what the CTP says. The route is just a sketch. And so as development happens, it can be varied. But at the end of the day, the connections need to be made and the quality of the road needs to be public collector street of that design that the planning director just showed you. And so the way for this applicant to comply, and this isn't what we should be talking about now, we should be talking about the plan. The only way they could comply with the collector street standard was to go essentially around, straight up and around the commercial and straight up to Wade Avenue. If they went to if they made that little connector that I believe was originally proposed or eliminated the connection altogether, both of those would fail to comply with the CTP language. So the board can set the CTP however it likes, and that's what the work session's for. And that can come forward to y'all after notice and a vote. And now with the change in the comprehensive plan to have commercial at that corner, the CTP should probably change as well.
Let me ask you a question, Dave. Don't it look like that Collector Street is a continuation of Old Pierce Street? I mean, Old Pierce Street comes out and then the Collector Street just goes across.
Correct.
That's not what our town is telling them to do. That still comes out, but they connecting down here to.
I don't know all the details, but I believe that's exactly what the town wanted them to do. The CTP allows someone to comply with the CTP by not following the direct route. The applicant in this case does not believe that's viable for them because they want to put the commercial, that's a design for a residential neighborhood, and they're doing a commercial project now. That's the disconnect. And they're doing a commercial project because, as I understand it, the 2050 plan expects commercial to be there.
Correct.
This, in 2021, we expected residential to be there.
Well, I really believe what you need to ask the board to do is not what y'all ask them to do, is ask them to take the connector street that connects to Old Pierce Road out. I don't think if you don't do it that way, you're not following the plan.
The plan is whatever the board wants to do. The staff doesn't have the discretion to waive parts of the plan. That's why it's before you.
We need a better diagram.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hard to work with, so we need to have every one of them named so we can actually see what's going on.
So some of the challenge of this also comes from a text change to the LDO, I believe in 2022, where the board decided to hold the staff and ourselves all to a higher standard. And that was the CTP was no longer a recommendation, it was a requirement.
Right.
And further, any planned or stubbed out road must be connected. So now if some prior plan had stubbed out, staff has no choice but to require that the stub continue. And that has triggered the largest amount of objection to the current project there because of the continuation of Classical Way.
But the stub out still would be residential to residential.
The way I believe it is currently proposed, it just goes straight out along the west side of the commercial portion, I believe is correct. and that was a little unpopular. By removing the collector, the local collector for Classical Way, which is the stub, it's essentially one dot on the CTP. The LDO would still apply. A road would still need to be constructed, but in theory, that road could just jog over and catch the horseshoe if that's a public street. I don't know if it is.
I'm not sure I understand an argument that it can't be done like our plan said. They collect the street through the commercial up there at 98. Right?
That is entirely a call for the board to take up with the applicant, and maybe this is not a rezoning that the board would desire to approve. However, the staff wanted to bring to you the option to amend the CTP if this is something you're interested in. If not, this can go back in the file and we move on to the March 3rd hearing.
I don't know what asking to amend the CTP, because that doesn't match the CTP. If you look at the CTP, that collector street don't go very far. It's just a little collector street in there. It doesn't go up to 98. So that,
On the original, on your first drawing that they were showing us? Yeah.
Go back to, so it's just a little connection in there. It doesn't go all the way up to 98. It doesn't create a thoroughfare through there. That's a big difference than what, being proposed, in my opinion.
So the applicant needs to make two connections. The LDO requires that they make the Classical Way connection at the property line, which is at the bottom, right at the bottom of the red box. And then the CTP has been interpreted that they need to bring a collector from that point and somehow get to Wade Avenue. The applicant is bringing forward a concept plan for your approval that says this is how they want to do it. We, the staff, have heard from individual board members as well as community members that they don't want a connection to be made to Classical Way.
Not to the commercial.
But what you're saying is like, instead of going straight up to Wade Avenue, they want to take that collector street and bring it off to the left to the horseshoe. So it basically, in a roundabout way, is taking you up to 98, but via neighborhood to neighborhood up to 98.
Correct.
So would that satisfies the
Connector.
That would not, because the horseshoe does not, that's a local residential street standard. It's not being built to collector street standard. But if the board were to amend the CTP to eliminate the Classical Way collector street standard, then the applicant could propose that. And if that were something the board wanted to accept, you would not need a change to the LDO because you would have made connection at Classical Way, and there would no longer be a collector street obligation for Classical Way. But at the end of the day, that's the applicant could pull this entire project tomorrow, and the question would be, did you still want to eliminate Classical Way as a collector street obligation to get to Wade Avenue?
Yeah, I think, Jen, that may be two things. If you want to change the map, is make this connection in Blizzard Springs a neighborhood connection, is what you call it. A neighborhood street. And then,
Stephen can correct me. We may be able to just eliminate it from the CTP plan, but because the LDO would still require a connection be made, it'll just be a public street.
That's right.
yeah,
Is that right?
That's right.
That's right.
I think.
And then you all can design it however you like.
Yeah, because the way it's on there now is that doesn't, I mean, it just, that's completely wrong in my view, having this collector street that's coming in the middle of residential, going all the way through commercial and then coming out onto Wade Avenue. So what do we as the board have to do to essentially amend? Is it?
It's the same process of changing the comp plan. It'd be like a map amendment.
Just for this specific project,
Yeah.
right?
Well, just this part of the map, but
Just a little piece.
just for this one connection.
yeah.
Or you can go back and review all the rest of the map and find other things.
And I think we would amend it to a Neighborhood Street, which is like that little one up there, a little horseshoe. And they connect to the horseshoe and
Yep.
just,
And that doesn't need to be addressed by the CTP. The rest of this is just local stuff. It's not part of the CTP plan.
So the biggest issue, I mean, it's the commercials driving that. The commercials is the.
It is the plan before you, but even if this plan doesn't happen, it's going to keep coming up because the comp plan that you are trying to bring is commercial to that intersection.
Yeah.
And
with
that's
commercial being in
always
that
going to be
intersection-
unpopular.
And with commercial being at the intersection, the connector road is a requirement based upon the CTP. Am I understanding that correctly?
The CTP is what it is, which is just those.
It
It's just
existed
that.
before the current comp plan.
Right.
so-
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
But true, we can make adjustments, but if we're putting commercial there, you have to have a connector road of some sort, is what I'm understanding.
Well, the commercial is going to be served by the thoroughfares,
Okay.
you know, on the outside of the.
So we don't have to have a connector road there at all.
Yeah, like,
You
Into
need
the
a
neighborhood is what.
you need a local road, but you don't need a collector.
oh, okay, so basically what we're saying is just make that collector road smaller, like a normal neighborhood street.
It would disappear from this map as a community collector.
Okay,
It would just, the new development would have to connect to the Elizabeth Springs development where the road stubs are. That's it.
neighborhood to neighborhood.
Neighborhood to
And it would
neighborhood.
still be used publicly
Yeah.
as
You're not
you're
not
Relief.
solving the problem. You're not solving the problem. You're not.
I really think putting that thoroughfare street almost, Collector Street, from 98 all the way down that neighborhood, it's gonna be used a lot.
a lot.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
that needs to be.
By eliminating the collector,
Eliminate that.
You wind up through the neighborhood, make 3-4 turns going through the neighborhood, it's gonna be used less.
by eliminating that section of the collector, you don't need to connect to Wade Avenue at that location,
Okay.
which would eliminate that cut through.
Yes.
Say that
Does that
again,
sound good?
say that again.
If it was just a local road and not a collector, the collector was required to get out to the, you know, the outer two roads, 80, was it 82, 81? That connection could be severed now. You wouldn't need to have that connected there.
Okay, and what would we as a board have to do to make that happen?
We would just bring forward an amendment that eliminates that segment
Okay,
of the community collector.
okay, so the planning department would bring that forward
Yeah.
to us as a condition for us to vote upon, correct?
Correct. We would,
It'll be a separate matter at your meeting
Okay,
before you have to consider the zoning case and have to determine whether it's consistent with the LDO and all the plans, because until you make the change,
Right.
you're gonna have a problem.
that's right.
okay, so,
Change first.
That's our instruction to the planning.
so is that like, so you're looking for, so if we were to say, hey, here's your instructions,
We have our marching orders. We'll get it done.
That's what we
Yeah.
need.
do we need to make a motion?
Nope. You guys will decide this when we bring it back to you. Now you're familiar with the process and what your policy choices will be. It would have been foolish for the staff to bring forward an amendment to the CTP and the board stare at the staff and say, hey, we already gave you a CTP.
So you're only gonna ask to eliminate the collector road.
Yeah, just the
on-
classical
on
way
the
connection north.
Plan over here. But I think as developer, I mean, we can ask them to make sure that the neighborhoods connect. That could be a condition, right? You connect neighborhood, to
Yeah.
neighborhood, not commercial to commercial, neighborhood, to neighborhood. And second, there's no commercial curb cuts in that neighborhood connection. I think we could say that too.
So
right?
no exit into the neighborhood.
Right, so in other words, you can't go to that commercial by cutting through any of the neighborhoods there.
We're getting rid of the speedway to bypass the light.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah,
that was a speedway there.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
for all intents purposes, have we sent the marching orders as?
I'm good.
You have.
I got it.
Okay.
You
I
have.
think it's two phases. One, we have to have a public hearing to eliminate the connector. And then the second thing is however they want to develop it, you just connect neighborhood to neighborhood, kind of like somebody drawn up there. Neighborhood to neighborhood, and in that connection from neighborhood to neighborhood, condition will be no commercial curb cuts or connections to it. Because that's the main thing, they didn't want to.
Once the CTP is amended, this will reach your seats as a standard zoning case.
Yeah.
And you will review the concept plan, which may change now based upon watching this on YouTube. And you will discuss it at that time.
Okay.
That sounds
Probably
good.
get fewer negative comments about it.
And I don't know, I don't know how I feel about the eliminating the connector street off of Avery, because it's supposed to be there.
I don't know how I feel about that either.
And it can obviously go through the shopping center, you know, it can obviously do that, and they chose not to. So I don't know how I feel about that. But they show it is that a private road they're showing there?
We're coming off of Avery onto the commercial.
Yeah, is that a private road they showing? Is that?
Yeah,
That's
it's a
private road.
it's a private driveway.
So they're putting the road in, but they don't want to be public.
I don't know anything about it.
Or is that like driving into?
It's a driveway.
Yeah.
And it's private, though, right?
Yeah.
It's a private.
This how you get to the
It's
commercial.
not, it's commercial.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to have a road to
Yeah.
get into the commercial portion.
Parking lots and
Well, I'm talking about private
assets.
to the owner of the shopping center.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not DOT.
That's what I mean by private. It's a private to the owner of the shopping center.
And that's what
That
you
is
want.
what is
That's what
proposed.
you want severed. That's what you want severed.
No, we're talking about the east-west,
Yeah,
the
they
zigzag.
don't want it connected to the commercial component. That you don't want that driveway to exist connecting to the residential.
That's right.
So
No,
that would go away.
you're talking about the dotted line that goes
I'm
from
talking
the
about
bottom
the
to the
zig.
top.
I'm talking about the zigzag through the commercial component.
Starting over here on the end, Jan, the one that goes
The
left,
Z.
up,
Yeah.
and then left again.
But what's the problem with that?
The mayor was saying he didn't want the commercial development to have access, direct access into the residential development.
That's the connector with Classical Way.
Yeah. So if you eliminate, if you eliminate that bottom piece, they won't be able to do that. I don't think that's the issue. 'Cause I don't know how they redesign it. I mean, that's, you don't need none of that long road there.
The applicant will likely have a couple of options.
The entrance into the commercial.
I can't figure out why they can't just come down and turn it and go out. I kind of like the drawing says, but it's evident and obvious reason they won't do that.
Perhaps it's
I'm
where
saying?
they want to place the commercial building.
But it could have been
Probably.
two.
That's, you know, because it looks to me like right there where there's kind of that square, that's where they would want to place the commercial building, whatever it might be, in that nook there. So you have to have access to it from, you know, both Everett and 96. But the collector road connecting the commercial into the neighborhood is that's the issue. And that doesn't need to be there.
No, don't. Got it figured out?
Yeah.
So we'll see this in 2 weeks first as a map amendment.
Well,
Want to
is
eliminate,
that time to advertise? Probably need more time. Yeah, okay,
it's going to eliminate the collector terminology.
okay. All right, thank you.
All right. We hashed out nothing. There's an education board. I did meet with a couple of them that came out here. One of them lived actually on that corner and expressed concerns. And I got another follow-up meeting Friday with the one that talks about the special use permits and the reason for the special use permits and stuff. And my understanding, Dave, you can clarify this, being this is a neighborhood commercial center, it has a lot of different process just than a general use thing. Like what we just did was a general use commercial, which one way it didn't tie to residential. This will be tied to the residential tightly, but it's a lot more to go through to figure out what the uses are. It has to be a lot of special use permits.
Because the neighborhood commercial or the plan districts require more planning, more steps. And because of that, there are fewer permitted uses, the Ps in the use table of the LDO, and more S's. So GC district has lots of Ps. Everything, just pretty much everything is permitted unless you have conditions to eliminate those uses. The neighborhood commercial district has more S's for special use permit, so that the property owner or developer, as they move forward and as they select the pieces that are going to be components to their plan, will end up before the Board of Adjustment for some of those uses. It will not come back to this board, but it'll go back as an evidentiary hearing to the Board of Adjustment.
Yeah, but it is a little bit different because they had special use permits. They kind of confused on why that. We'll talk to them.
The Board of Adjustment.
No, the neighborhood.
Residents.
When I am a concerned neighbor, I would prefer an S to a P.
That's right.
Because then potentially, if I could have been injured, I have grounds to be involved in the process.
I think they're looking at it backwards. They're looking at it like, hey, you can get a lot more uses with a special use permit than you can, and I think they're looking at it.
Okay. Let me know if I can help on that.
We'll find out. Anything else from the board? I know we've got a late meeting, but I do want to make a couple comments real quick. Anything real quick from either one of you guys?
Just
Not on the agenda, but.
Yeah, not on the agenda. This Friday, Central Ponds is hosting their annual regional day. That is all day on Friday. I just forwarded an email to you. They should have been emailing you all directly, but I wanted to just send a reminder to you about that in case you had the opportunity to attend. They particularly recommend it for new elected officials, so it's something to look at if you have time.
You said you just sent it via email?
Yeah, I did. I just forwarded it to you. They've been sending out updates about it, but I didn't know if we get to you all directly or not, but they sent the update about it yesterday evening, so I just forwarded it to you. Chrissy's been communicating with you all about town phone number, cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Please reply if you would like to do that. The deadline passed for early registration for City Vision, which is in Raleigh. I know that Commissioner Long and Commissioner Alston have registered to do that. If you would like to attend, please see the email on that from Chrissy. And then lastly, an update on the funding from, I just want to share this out to the community. We had submitted, we essentially pitched or proposed the farm park to Wake County, City of Raleigh, Wake County Visitors Bureau for funding. And we were selected by the City County, Wake County, City of Raleigh, and Visitors Bureau joint selection team to receive the full amount of our request. It was recommended and went before the Wake County Board of Commissioners yesterday, and it was approved on consent. And today, I don't know the results of today, but I would assume it will be the same with the City of Raleigh. But to receive $3.8 million to go towards the build out of the farm park. It's a last in, last money in situation, so we will be fully reimbursed for that amount at that build out. And so once we see the results of that in their minutes, because the meeting was early today and they have a joint meeting tonight, we'll include that within our CIP programming and start planning for that. And so that'll thankfully help us move some things forward in that project. And I know Commissioner Villa somewhere very, very happy. Former Commissioner Villa somewhere very, very happy. Very happy. But I wanted to share that with you all too. So those are the major updates at this point. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to close real quick by mentioning the North Carolina Mayor Association last week. Went to that. One of the things to make sure if we got any 23 funds, state funds or probably federal funds from 23, we need to close that out to get reimbursements. And I don't know if we got any funds or not, but I think March is the last time. Once past March, you're going to get reimbursed even if they promise you something. So, and I don't recall anything from 23. One of the major speakers at the mayor's meeting was the state auditor. I never known the state auditor to come before. So, you know, finance is a big item, you know, for municipalities. And, I think we got a good financial group that's doing a good job with Amy and them. P cards is a thing that they keep mentioning, P cards. So, I would kind of, you know, need to watch those and Eric, maybe, you know, keep us informed of anything we need to know. I think that was part of the problem that some of these towns have, that they were kept in the dark about some things. You know, if it's something the board needs to be aware of, we need to be aware of it before it comes out in the media, like some other towns have, investigations and start and stuff like that. So, because that's a big item right now, is the financial things. Real quick, some of the legislative stuff's going on. They are putting a committee together. You may know about this, more about this, Dave, than I do. A property tax reduction committee, where they're looking very hard of maybe capping property tax or reducing property tax. You know, that's gone up a lot lately. So they really stated looking at how to control that from the town's perspective, which really, you know, that's the main thing we get our revenue from, is property tax. And, you know, it'll affect the police and fire departments and everything else if they decide to reduce property tax. They trying to keep affordability down, I guess, but it's really tough on us. Downsizing was talked about again. They were trying to fix that. You know, we talked about that a lot. I think it's passed in the Senate, but it's stuck in the House. You may know that. I'm not sure why it's stuck in the House. Nobody knows why it's stuck in the House, but it's stuck in the House right now. Hopefully that will go through to take some of this pressure off of downsizing for sure. Affordable housing was talked about a lot. There's a lot of crazy ideas about affordable housing. You know, the three big people that are lobbying, you know, the state on affordable housing has to be the Home Builders Association, the state Commerce Department, and also the Realty Association, State Realty Association people. And they're lobbying pretty hard. There are even discussions about total freedom of, you know, developers being able to develop without any town. You know, we wouldn't have any say-so what coming in. In other words, it make it free enterprise, free, you know, all restrictions would come off of development pretty much. I know you probably heard that. There's actually a bill on that, and I'm not sure it's kind of stuck up in there right now, but that would be a big change for everybody, because then you don't have any control about anything. We could meet only 2 hours a month probably if that happens.
Or a
You know,
year.
a lot of us is we try to do land use stuff, and they take land use away from the towns. It'd be a bad thing, I think.
Be a mistake.
Huh?
It'd be a mistake.
So it did you say it passed the Senate, but it's stalled in the House now? Is that what you said
Work on my
with
golf
that
game.
particular bill?
Which one?
No, the one about taking away
Our
Like-
rights as.
our rights as a town.
Yeah, that really hasn't created a bill yet. I think what.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying
Yeah,
that
I
that
think
was,
what they've done is set up committees, I believe. So each house has a committee, and the Senate has a committee, and actually starting to look at how can we reduce property tax, people paying for property tax. It may be more limited, you know, talk about it could be more limited to senior citizens and veterans and stuff, because they're the ones who get hit the hardest. But, you know, it could
if they
be
do that, then they raise the sales tax. I mean, you're still going to get taxed someplace. So if they're taking it away from property taxes,
They don't have to, because it doesn't affect the state. So they can do that, they can do that, and it doesn't affect state taxes at all. It just affects us. And, so it would not be any other, you know, we'd have to figure out, and we can't raise sale tax, we can't raise, you know, any of those taxes, so.
Are the counties looking at fighting this?
I
Do
don't
we
think
have
they're
a
talking about
lobbying
the county.
association or
I don't-
anything?
I haven't, well, this is a mayor's meeting, so I didn't hear anything about the county.
Yeah. I mean,
The
counties
league has been
affected. I'm just-
actively working on the regulatory reform bills, which is what they're all captioned as, that would eliminate regulation of the residential development piece and a variety of zoning matters. That is actively in the league's legislative agenda for this last session, which is still the current session, I guess. But I have not heard anything about the tax question yet. I'm not, because there's no bill yet, I guess. So there's not really anything to lobby against.
The property tax.
The property tax piece, yeah.
Is pushing it, they're lobbying pretty hard on that, because really they've got a couple presentations, and I'll share it to you when I get it. But when you look at fire, police, that's what we get it from. If you can't have property tax like we have it, then that's what's going to get cut, fire and police and protection.
The whole thing doesn't even make sense then, so they stop our revenue stream to be able to take care of our communities. So then that just means that the state would have to pick it up. Like, you can't just say no more money for you, but you got to keep doing what you're doing.
That's right. I mean, I think the league is taking this stance that we would have to cut, and we probably would if we didn't get all the funds.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Short-sighted. It's short-sighted.
Yeah, well, it's trying to address people. They're getting hit hard with, property tax is too high, property tax is too high, and the state can control that. They give us the ability to tax, and they can take the ability away from us to tax. But pretty interesting stuff going on right now down in Washington gets all the headlines, but a lot of things going on down on Jones Street too that you don't hear much about, and you got to keep an eye on that too. You know what I mean? So it's in both places.
Yeah.
But that's all I got. So if I'm here in opposition to adjourn.
None.
What, are you sure?